Hello everyone, it's Oliver here, and I'm back with a new audio commentary. This podcast is on Dragon the Bruce Lee story. Joining me is my friend Michael Peristeris. You may remember Michael, he provided commentaries to the Mad Max trilogy on my channel, along with Enter the Dragon. Well folks, if you wish to sync this commentary with your own copy of the film, put the timestamp to 0 and press play now. Now, Michael.
Yes.
No, we both grew up watching this movie
when
it came out in 1993. I don't think I saw it till like 94, like the video release, and I don't recall seeing any trailers for it. But it was like a lot of the video game magazines were covering the actual making of the video game itself. I think I think maybe how I caught wind of it. And then in the UK they had this like TV show called Movies, Games and Videos, or it might have been called Movies at the time, but they had a section on Dragon the Bruce Lee story. So it was I was pretty excited to watch this movie, and it's always after sort of at the time being into my sort of Bruce Lee sort of history. When I saw this film, I was a bit like, well, that's not right. This bit's wrong, but it was. What I love about the film is that it's got the emotion there, and Jason Scott Lee really kind of embodies what Bruce Lee is all about.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Out of all of them, out of all those Bruceploitation imitators, for me, he probably got it better than anyone else. And for me, going back to what you said, I didn't watch it in cinema. I can't remember when I got wind of it, but I do remember what basically happened with me was we rented it probably late at '94. It must have been because it was a weekly rental. It wasn't a new release, and I knew like back in the old days, you were talking back in the old days, geez, with rental stores, VHS stores, they'd start off, like new releases would be one day for like $4 Australian dollars or whatever, and you'd have like the weekly ones would be like $3. And what happened that time is we got like 2 new releases and like 2 weeklies, me and my brothers. And the first thing I did, foolish me, which pissed off my brothers, was I put this on straight away, which was a weekly. And they're like, no, we got to watch the new releases because we don't have time to fuck around. You got a whole week. And I still remember they were upset when I first put this on. But then when we watched it, we really enjoyed it. We're like, let's watch it again the next day. It was like, I can't even remember what the first releases were, what the new release movies we rented were. It could have been probably Passenger 56 or whatever it's called.
This completely like overshadowed.
It overshadowed the memory as well because we were that into it. We thought, how good could this be trying to be like a Bruce Lee type biopic? We didn't think much of it. Like we thought, what is this going to be? I said, well, let's have a look. And sure enough, yeah, it was very impressive. And I don't even know when I got wind of the game, but it was soon after. I was like, once I knew there was a video game, I just wanted to play it and I rented it. And yeah, I was bloody impressed. I won't lie.
They really play on, right from the start, don't they? They play on the fact that Bruce is being haunted by this kind of demon, and this is kind of all stems from the idea that, because obviously this film's based on a biography written by
Linda,
Bruce's wife, Linda Lee Cadwell, that Bruce had sort of said that he was being pulled down by this force or something like that. I think maybe when he passed out, and he sort of referred to this kind of thing that was following him in that sort of bit loosest terms, and they sort of kind of turned that into this kind of demon that is like a samurai who's actually played by Sven Olsen.
Yes, I was going to say, like I only found that out recently looking up. I had a bit of refresh my memory with a lot of the stuff here, and yeah, it was Sven Olsen from Conan fame and a bit of Arnie's best mate at one point.
Yeah,
training partner. From what I heard with this demon sort of story, it's kind of like a mix of things where there was a point where Bruce Lee was having like repetitive nightmares, I think it was, something like that. And I think Linda caught him in his sleep where he was literally like fighting in his sleep with someone. And she or him described it when he woke up like fighting with the demon. And this was going through his transitional period where he was going difficulties in the States with his acting career and whatever. And then it's kind of like after this, he never had any nightmares again, but that's when his Hong Kong situation kicked off. So it was kind of like a transition thing from what I gathered. And they use that as like a basis for this subplot in the film to make it like, oh, he's being chased. And that's the problem with this movie. And I don't want to say it's a problem. It's like, it's 40 to 60% accurate. It can go both ways. It's like, yes, this happened, but not exactly as it was. Like his father having a fear of losing Bruce, if I'm not mistaken, he did have an older brother. Right? He had 2 older brothers. Here's the thing. The firstborn son did actually die at childbirth or young, so that's accurate. But Bruce was not the oldest child. He had an even older brother named Peter. And so it wasn't... It plays a lot loosely with the idea of like, oh, your brother died first, you had an older brother. Yes, but he even had an even older brother So the whole curse about the whole subplot of going after the first son, the oldest son.
It doesn't make sense.
No, it
once
doesn't.
you sort of, once you sort of do your research, and it's also like because they tried to imply, or his father says that he's passed on his demons to his son because he wasn't supposed to have a son, he's supposed to have a daughter because they dressed him up in girls' clothes.
Just to quickly stop you there, sorry, on it. Did you see who was the cinematographer?
Oh no, dismissed that.
David Egby. Mad Max.
Aussie. Oh yeah, Mad Max.
Mad Max fame. There you go. Sorry, sorry to interrupt you because before I forgot, but you were saying about the whole situation with the father and that, yeah.
It was obviously they play on they do address that his father was an actor, he's a performer. He was obviously I think it was an opium addict, wasn't he, at the time?
Yes, opium.
Throughout the majority of his life, and obviously he trained Bruce obviously to get him out of trouble, wasn't it? I think, or was it kind of, or maybe once he started learning, he started getting into more fights and stuff. Then he had to sort of, leave Hong Kong.
What I gathered,
because we know Bruce was acting at this age, and the film doesn't address that.
No. See, the film feels a bit weak because at one stage you see the father and Bruce living sort of like in humble situation, when in fact Bruce was actually, his father's quite wealthy. He had maids, he had servants. So Bruce, and also he had a couple of siblings. So it wasn't like an only child living in this swallow. He was living in a pretty decent house. And Bruce by that stage did become one of those brats. He was more like a rich brat type situation where he had his own gang. And he was getting into fights. He was like, I've got my gang or whatever. And one day, he was roughly about like 13, 14. He's like, well, what's going to happen if I don't have my gang around? And he picked a fight and he got his ass kicked. And that's when he basically, I can't fight for shit. And I'm getting my ass kicked, so I've got to do something about it. And that's when, from what I gathered, because his father knew like Tai Chi as well. But Bruce didn't want to do any of that. Try to teach him Tai Chi, it didn't work. So Bruce sent him to Yip Man, who's now become more legendary because of the Donnie Yen movies that have come out. Like, they're up to like the 6 now. I don't know how many they've done.
I think they made 4. I think. Maybe.
I don't know.
Ip Man 4: The Quest for Peace.
I was going to say 6 Electric Boogaloo, but that doesn't work. I'm trying to think of a Part 6 movie, but The Quest for Peace. Is that? No, that's the quest. No, it's the Final Frontier. That's the Star Trek one. Anyway, not making fun of the bloke, but from what I gathered. Again, if we got time to squeeze it all in, Bruce Lee did come from a wealthy family, but he wasn't pure-blooded Chinese, which closes the...
Yeah, he had German heritage.
He had a bit of German heritage, yes, because his mum was half German, and there was a lot of issues with that. And because of that, from what I've gathered, Bruce could not officially train under Yip Man. He couldn't be in the paperwork to say this student, because Yip Man was such a high ranking, he couldn't take this student. So it was like basically Bruce was underwritten, because of his father's wealth, was underwritten like under a student of Yip Man's. So an older student, probably about the same age, not the same age, probably close to his 20s, was officially Bruce's teacher in that respect. But Yip Man was the bloke who trained Bruce Lee. So it was, it's just all in the paperwork because of that reason.
Yeah. Obviously now they'll be playing on the fact that Bruce was a good cha-cha champion or
performer.
Obviously they're sort of combining like Bruce's sort of antics in his social life of fighting, and then mixing it with his cha-cha sort of training and performing. And it's like, I like this bit here because the guy runs away. I always implied that I better go get Bruce. You know what I mean?
That guy, I feel kind of bad for him because maybe there was a deleted scene where it's like, oh, Bruce, can you come help? Whatever. But they didn't follow through.
I love this moment here because it's like an introduction. It's like a Clark Kent persona he's got.
He has glasses.
He just turns into Superman by ripping his shirt off.
Oh, God.
It's a great introduction.
It's a great introduction too, and it kind of does fit in with what Bruce was going through, because once he started learning martial arts, he did become, I don't want to say more of a bully, but he did like look for fights. He wasn't backing off from fights, like, all right, take me on now, because he was a high school boxing champion, if I'm not mistaken. So Bruce was, whatever he did, he excelled in. The same with Cha-Cha. He was very, did Cha-Cha and so forth. And he was probably 2-time Hong Kong champion. Something like that. Now, looking at this fight here, if I'm not mistaken, because I was checking, I think the date said 1962, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well that's...
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, well here we go already with another mistake. Bruce had moved to the States in 1959 when he was like 18. So by this stage, like, it's trying to imply that Bruce was still in Hong Kong getting into fights in his early 20s, which is wrong, because he would have been 22 technically at this stage.
because his father, got rid of him to sort of basically stop, to avoid getting in trouble with the police, wasn't it? You can go to America because you were born in America, you have residency there. So
his mother had to stand guarantor for him. Like the police eventually said, "Look, you're going to have to be responsible for him." And his mother, along with his father, they sent him away to stay with relatives in the States. Not only that, because he had to renew his citizenship. Because that goes back to his age. It wouldn't have made sense because he hadn't been in the States for so long. Because he was 18. It was in a situation where come renew your American citizenship or you lose it. So it was like, it's a good chance to him to go back, send him to some relatives, give him some work as a dishwasher, and it works. We're kind of talking over the concept of this whole fight here. Just everything about it, like
because he pulls out in the moment. Actually, it's like a toilet chain, isn't it?
We thought, nunchucks. When we were kids, like the nunchucks. Like, what's this?
Yeah, what was this?
I don't care if it is a toilet chain. I wouldn't want to be hit by it. It looked like it'd leave a bloody nasty scar, I'll tell you that.
What do you think of Jason Scott Lee as Bruce Lee? Because, he's a lot taller than Bruce, I think, and he's actually kind of more sort of bulkier.
Oh, yeah, I was about to mention about that. There are a few things I'm not too happy with. Now, obviously, they probably might do it more accurate nowadays, but seeing Bruce like this ripped to shreds, big chest. The big mistake for me with Jason Scott Lee is his chest is just too big. I just can't look at it compared to what Bruce was, because Bruce had a much more different physique. But Bruce wasn't at this point this kind of well into physical fitness. Like he wasn't, his body wasn't this lean. It wasn't this muscular.
I was that later part of the 60s, wasn't it, where he became like so lean. He was like totally shredded, wasn't he, at that point?
Well, it happened.
No fat on him.
Yeah, it happened after the fight with Wong Jack Man that is in this movie, but is not named Wong Jack Man, which is oddly enough.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like when it did happen, when the fight, when he said, "Look, I'm not physically as fit. I got exhausted. I need to work on my physique," and that's when he really got into bodybuilding. That's when he really got into the whole thing. So it just feels a bit too far removed right now at this point. Even with the haircut, it's like Enter the Dragon style haircut.
Yeah. There's moments where he pulls the right expression, angle, where you think, oh, okay, that looks like Bruce. But what I think with a lot of biopics we've seen over the years, where they cast someone who doesn't actually look like who they're portraying, but what they imbue in the performance is they actually act like them, or they sort of sound like them, or they capture the mannerisms. And I think that's where Jason Scott Lee does it so well.
And he's a good actor. So it goes... Because, look, I've seen a lot of Bruceploitation films back in the 80s, like...
there were so many,
and every time you
Bruce
saw
Lie
him...
and things like that.
Yeah, Bruce Lie, whatever. Bruce Lowe, Bruce Lee with an eye or whatever. And some of them had very good physiques, and they had the right hair, they had the right body, but all their mannerisms came from Bruce Lee films. It's like they didn't come from any other point. And Jason Scott Lee's audition...
It becomes a spoof, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's like, it's exactly. And I saw Jason Scott Lee's audition for this role, where he did like a fight scene, and he did very much exactly the same thing. Like he got the mannerisms of the quote, like stereotypical Bruce Lee mannerisms. Where I don't know if later on he might have talked with Linda, because she was a big part. Linda Lee, Bruce's, or whatever her name is now, Cadwell, I think it was. Where she probably gave him a bit of tips about his mannerisms. And same with the person who trained Jason Scott, who was a Bruce Lee student. I'm trying to remember like what that guy's name was, like Jerry Petit, I think it was like.
Yeah, Petit.
I think that, yeah. So from where he started with the auditions to where he ended up, I think he got a lot of the mannerisms so well, where I'm not looking at a Bruce Lee imitation. I'm kind of feeling like this is Bruce Lee.
Yeah, it's a lot of things like that, especially with I saw the recent film Elvis by Baz Luhrmann.
I haven't seen that yet.
It's an absolutely stunning film, incredible. When you see the guy, I think it doesn't really look like Elvis, but when he starts performing and singing and acting in a way like Elvis, you totally buy into it. And it's the same with this. When I was younger, I'd seen a bunch of Bruce Lee movies. I think by this point, I don't think I'd seen maybe perhaps like Fist of Fury or Big Boss. I think like maybe a part of Way of the Dragon and mostly Enter the Dragon, which I just rewatched over and over again.
Yeah.
So you see this and think at first, okay, it doesn't look like Bruce, but shortly into it, you think, wow, I'm completely into this. I'm convinced it's the new Bruce Lee. You know what I mean?
You're so into it, your brain switches. I'll give you another. You mentioned Elvis. Yeah. I'll tell you what's good. If you haven't seen it, you can probably see it online now. I saw it recently. John Carpenter's Elvis biopic with starring Kurt Russell.
Oh, yeah.
I freaked out because I'm looking at Kurt Russell, and I know Kurt Russell so well. I'm thinking, like, while I'm watching it, I completely forgot it was Kurt Russell and thought it was Elvis. And it's that good, and John Carpenter directed it. It's that good, you think, wow, you get so into it. And sometimes that's what you need in movies like this, like with Dragon, where you need someone who's that good of an actor who could emote the emotions and the mannerisms, and you totally forget, you stop thinking about, this guy doesn't look like Bruce Lee as much as he should.
And Jason Scott Lee does a very good job with the sort of the Bruce Lee sort of like war cries or sort of screams.
Oh, yeah. And that, but again, it goes back to the whole how inaccurate this film is. Because Bruce never, in reality, was a showboat like that. He never screamed. He never did what you saw in the movies. But they added it because it's good, and they added it for this sort of situation. Now, again, even here, it's a situation where it's like, look at Bruce Lee, and it's kind of like, oh, he's in an old danky boat. Where that wasn't the case at all. Because when he went to the States, he did go on a boat. But because he was teaching cha-cha to first class people, because again, Hong Kong was very multicultural, especially with the British. There was British settlement there. He was teaching, they put him in first class because of that reason, because he was always teaching. So he upgraded himself just by his charisma and mannerism and his skills.
Yeah, you can see things are like the points of history of where he's going from point A to point B. The movie sort of captures quite well, but it's always the surroundings he's in, or the situation he's in personally, have all been manipulated to sort of in a cinematic way, just either for this point to be a sort of underdog or sort of still treated badly, and then to sort of rise up and and get his success. So you've got to have this kind of, it's always done in films. It's always when you see, especially with things like the Bohemian Rhapsody
I haven't seen that yet.
movie, which I didn't particularly like. There's good performances in it, but I think how they sort of tell the story of how they came together, it was so sort of a bit contrived and a bit sort of cheesy in a way. It didn't seem to be at all natural. It seemed to be very much a sort of workman-like process. And in the case of this, it doesn't seem workman-like in that regard. What they've got is they've got to try and condense his whole life down to 2 hours, or even less than that, maybe an hour 45 to take away the end credits. So it's a difficult job to do, and you're cutting through a lot of stuff. It comes 1962 now. He's in San Francisco.
I was going to say, going back to that thing, that what does also give good credence is that speech we just passed over about the not a Chinaman's chance. Because Australia is very, like, history, we always focus on Australian history, Captain Cook, whatever. That, for me, I didn't know, like, the Chinese worked on the railroads and that sort of stuff. For me, that was, as much as it does kind of take out from the history where Bruce wasn't in a third-class underboat, like, stocked up with a lot of people, it does give credence to what the situation is in the States. What the situation is with the States. So I like that moment. So I will give it, like, it does give a history lesson.
The whole film plays on the sort of the undercurrent racism in America, doesn't it?
Which is good. Which is actually, it wasn't in my face. Like a lot of movies today, they would like shove it in your face, like this person went through this much persecution because of this reason. Not to say he wasn't, not to say he didn't. But the point was, like, the way they do it in this film is, you could say, so perfectly poignant without being right in your face, without shoving it in your face. I mean, it does happen in a few instances where it might be over the top, but nothing compared to what they do now, where they try as much as they can to just make you feel so sorry for the character. Like, again, it all depends on the director.
I think it's with this, he's given a few roadblocks, and he's sort of made to feel bad in a way where it's not like, it's not too much in your face, but it's this sort of just part of the culture, isn't it, really? And he needs to sort of find his way through it all.
Now that I'm thinking, because it showed another 1962 again, it's kind of messing me up with the timeline, because I'm thinking, why did they do that in the first place? Because by this stage, Bruce was already in college in 1962, and he met Linda very soon after, and they had Brandon like 64. So it's just, there's something weird about, I don't know why they went so ahead in the timeline. I don't know why they just couldn't do it in 1959. Because right now, they're kind of still emphasizing by 62, he was in, Ruby Chow's. The glasses, I must say, are very accurate. I like the fact that they got, because Bruce had terrible eyesight.
He did, didn't he? Yeah.
He had some very bad eyesight. And the glasses you see in Fist of Fury, because you mentioned it, when he plays like the bumbling telephone repairman, that's Bruce Lee's glasses.
Yeah.
And here we go again, just adding a bit of side stuff.
Gets to meet a lady. It was April, isn't it?
Actually, even that's accurate at one stage, because I remember reading at one stage he did meet this one Asian lady before he met Linda, a Chinese lady, and he was all praising the fact, like he's calling his dad, like, oh man, I'm going to marry this girl. You know, I found a Chinese girl that I love here in the States, da 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 da, and that fell through. And you know, but again, they added this here, going on with the story here of the kitchen sort of situation.
Oh, the kitchen fight is great because I love the chef.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun.
It's a lot of flailing around and
yeah,
and sort of screaming, which is quite funny. It's quite comical.
Yeah. I love this bit, like
when he grabs the knife, he's like, "Wah!"
For whatever that person is, he's actually on a shirtless, getting fire on him. So it's good. His skin's exposed, so that's pretty good. I love the play.
It's a pretty good. It's really well edited. The fight scenes are, and it's and I do know it's sort of fight choreography is done by the guy who plays.
I love the. I was just making the sound effect of the blades, just so you know that, people, because I remember like a ching ching ching, the way they were getting the blades out from the wood. Yeah, the choreography's good. Everything's good. There's so much fun, and look, even the camera work, like even that panning back.
For American production, they've made a good conscious effort to spend a little bit more time on the fights, and the editing is not choppy.
Yeah.
You get to see a lot of wide shots. I suppose I do recall Rob Cohen saying that he'd made the movie like it was a Bruce Lee movie.
And yeah, you can see the style is pretty good. Like and you go on the editing, they're not doing close-ups. The one fight movie I can't stand, which has connection with this one as well, is Mortal Kombat, where a lot of what bothered me is when they throw a kick, when the actor would throw a kick, then they'd show a close-up of the person's face, watching the foot hit the face, and you lose so much of the impact. Where here, you're seeing a lot of it, where you're seeing in one shot, one take. So
yeah, is there a way sort of to edit around stuff to make it appear faster?
Yeah, not only faster, maybe some of the actors aren't as adverse in fighting, because again, that's a whole other film, but there's the history of the actress of Sonya. I keep forgetting her name. She was in Last Action Hero. She eventually married Pete Sampras.
Yes. Oh god.
Oh god, the name's on tip of my tongue.
Bridget something?
Bridget Nielsen. Bridget Nielsen. No, Bridget. Anyway, we're overextending. Like, she was brought in last minute, where the other original actress had to pull out for whatever reason, and they had to all right, just throw some kicks. Like, they really didn't plan it as well, which is a shame, because I think if Mortal Kombat was filmed like this, it might have had a bit more better reviews, because this here is just, you kind of stop thinking of it as a Bruce Lee movie, and you just think about, a young Oriental person who's gone to the States, who's got his own difficulties, and he just does this. So it adds more to it. So
it's Bridget Wilson.
Bridget Wilson. I thought it had a son in it. Here we go, a bit of a Big Boss reference. I love this.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, my brothers.
The other guy, the chef, though, captures him though with both his legs.
Yeah.
You know, sort of like, but it's some sort of wrestling move, isn't it?
Yeah, you remind me, because we were like, "What is this dude gonna do to Bruce Lee?" And then you see some of his moves, like, yeah, this little dude's got it. He's not a nobody, so he's not fighting a nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
But again, going back to Bruce, a lot of this is inspired by the Big Boss, and even here, like, I love the sound he makes.
The bloke, what's he doing in the background?
He's just smacking his head.
Throwing an epi, isn't he?
Ow, ow, ow. And the good thing is you feel the severity of this fight, especially here, like this dude. Whack, I love that. That's such a good...
Yeah, it just grabs his nuts, so doesn't he? It's great.
It's good. That's actually... He sells it. This little dude sells it. I'm saying little, but we're probably about the same height.
And we got the Enter Dragon kind of like move, doesn't it? But he's sort of crushing his chest. He crushes the
Oh, man, it's so cool.
That was the great thing about the video game, because you could do so much damage to your opponent if you knock them down, jump on their chest, and
oh yeah, you make the sound effect. I love that game.
You can get through the levels so quickly, and you put up your chi like so fast. Because I hadn't played it for a long time, and I played it again recently. I was like, once you kind of figure out the controls, because it plays so differently to like Streets of Rage or Street Fighter, once you get your head around it, it sort of becomes a lot of fun. And having to strangle the samurai demon at the end is like so satisfying.
So just a quick stop you there. So this lady here is Nancy Kwan. Right? Now, she was in the Wrecking Crew. I just forgot about it with Sharon Tate. And Bruce Lee was the fight choreographer in that movie. So she actually knew the real Bruce Lee. She worked with the real Bruce Lee. Because she was a Hong Kong actress. I don't know if she was an actress, but she was born in Hong Kong. I'm just saying, I don't know if she was an actress before she went to the States, but she was born just about a year before Bruce Lee, and she moved to the States, Nancy Kwan, and she has had a very illustrious career. Even to this day, I think she's still working, if I'm not mistaken. Like, but she's like, she did very well for herself, because even here, she's a 50-year-old, I don't want to say anything about her age, but even at 50, she's got the lovely presence going on here. And she was working with Bruce at one stage, so it's kind of, I'm trying to figure out what's going on through her mind. It's like, I know the real Bruce Lee. I've worked with the real Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Because I'm just trying to figure it out, because it was roughly about this stage in like 68 she worked with him. Just before I went to Hong Kong.
I love how she sort of does at the end, where you go spend all your money, come back to me and be a dishwasher.
Yeah, exactly. No, she's good.
Love it.
She's good at it.
She's very good. Yeah. She's got screen presence.
When I was going through the history of this film, I was going through like the details. A lot of the people here, and not just the actors, like behind the scenes people, a lot of them were like first timers. Like even Rob Cohen, this was his first. He'd done motion pictures before, but
he'd done TV. He was a producer.
Yeah, he'd done a lot of producing. Like he did The Running Man, he did the Monster Squad, executive, and so forth. He did like producing and executive producing. But even here, like a lot of people, like a lot of the actors, like the guy who played Yip Man, he was a first-time actor, and he was obviously in an older age, but he's still got a career going on to this day.
Rob Cohen had done a couple of movies in the 80s, like directed like A Small Circle of Friends and Scandalous. But yeah, there was a massive gap, nearly a 10-year gap, where he directed a feature.
Yeah.
And then after this, it will start his kind of his sort of work with Universal Pictures, because this was obviously a success. And then he'd do Dragonheart, then Daylight, and then so forth. But
and then famously Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, he kickstarted that whole franchise, didn't he?
It's kind of sad, because for me, this might be his peak directing movie. It might be his best directed film.
I think along with this with Dragonheart, I think it seemed to have a lot of nostalgia for people do, especially 90s kind of or 90s cinema. This movie does have some elements of trappings of being somewhat of a TV movie in that regard, in terms of its I suppose in terms of its scaling, in terms of it, like at the end where Enter the Dragon stuff, it's all very. All you're seeing is this kind of wall of mirrors, and it's not very accurate. It's not accurate at all to what it looked like.
No. But then when I saw the budget, like 14 million for back then for the mid-90s, 14 million is actually quite low. It's close to a TV movie budget. So for what they had, for what the very low, like there's no big names in this movie. I'm trying to think of one big name. Because usually in a situation like this, they would get a big name actor.
Robert Wagner's probably the big name. But he's like a veteran.
He's a veteran, I'd say, more than that. And he was during that era. So it's kind of like what I have seen, which might be the smart move. They have got a few people, and I'll point them out, who did actually know Bruce, work with Bruce. So they probably got a lot of influence from those people as well. And I think Robert Wagner was during that time period of Hollywood. So he might have had a good insight when they're talking about the whole Kung Fu series and all that.
I think some of the budget comes down to the fact that you are trying to shoot a movie that's set in the past, and you've got to find locations, you've got the costumes, and probably, maybe in some regards, some visual effects are sort of erase things that are more contemporary, like, I don't know, like satellite dishes or something like that.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Oh no, they didn't actually remove it, so they didn't actually put a computer to it. They actually got everyone to remove their satellite dishes. But again, I can't think of an instance where this movie took me out from the setting. I never thought, that's 1990s.
No, they did a good job. Also, the cameraman did a great job sort of giving it that sort of look. There's certain colour palettes you have to sort of distinguish each decade, really, don't you? Like, especially with the 60s, there's a lot of pop colour to it in some cases.
So this is supposed to be like 62. This is just before Vietnam.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, technically, like I said, like this point here, I think, I don't know, is this college or high school? Because I'm trying to remember.
This is high school. This would be college, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So because he was he started teaching classes, didn't he, at the school? But I don't know if he actually had a fight on in the gym. I think this is all kind of just it's all a setup, isn't it?
This movie's basically set up like now we're in this setting. Now we got one fight here. Now we got one fight.
I'm sure he was learning English, wasn't he? Was he learning English at this point at this school?
I think so. He did major in philosophy. I know that part. He did do major in philosophy, and he did become like a diligent student. He was very like he did really start focusing on himself. So he wasn't, I don't know if he was learning English so much as like he was, if he did, he was pretty much progressed. But again, coming from a wealthy background, he probably was already versed in English because again, British settlement in the Hong Kong at that stage, it wouldn't run past me that he did probably know English by this stage, probably fairly well.
It's interesting that like a lot of the people that Bruce trained over the years became his students. They also became kind of minor celebrities themselves, didn't they? Once Bruce had sadly passed away.
Yeah.
For ever documentaries or any articles, they'd seek out these students to sort of get them to sort of tell them about their experience with Bruce. And I was because with Jerry Poteet, because most of the time it's Danny Santo.
Danny Santo is probably the bigger exponent, whatever you want to call it. I don't know the word.
He was obviously utilised in Game of
Yeah,
Death.
he was much more closer, I think, to Bruce because he even baptized his daughter. His daughter recently was in The Mandalorian.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, she was playing. I can't remember the role. Didn't think because I didn't think we were going to talk about her, but she was doing pretty good as well. Like, again, the influence that Bruce left has continued on. So you got to think how much of an impact he had on these people's lives. Where not only because they're minor celebrities, you want to say like because of the knowing of Bruce Lee, but they're that dedicated to the whole concept of Jeet Kune Do and his teachings and philosophies, where they've carried it on to their kids and they carried it on as teachers. So. He must have had a big impact. And again, this is 1960 something. I'm not going to say 62 because I don't know what year it actually was. And these are people that probably never really saw this sort of stuff. Like, wow, like look at the fluidity of martial arts. But to point out, he was still in Wing Chun at this stage. So he hadn't developed Jeet Kune Do at this stage.
No, he was all doing, sort of showing them his style. And because obviously, I presume at the time, many of the people that became his students had seen karate and judo, which is very sort of rigid kind of style, wasn't it?
Most likely judo, yeah. Judo would have been the big. Karate was still new as well.
People in the US had, obviously, when they were in Japan, they'd brought it over, hadn't they, back from after the World War II.
Yeah. A lot of them did that. Same with Korea. I think Korea was the one that kind of brought in karate. Was not much more because Chuck Norris, if I'm not mistaken.
Taekwondo was a thing, wasn't it, at the time? Wasn't it? Sure.
No, Chuck Norris was in Vietnam. Anyway, but
he was missing in action. They found him eventually.
He broke out. No, he escaped.
They found his beard.
No, he wasn't missing in action. I was just trying to say. No, he wasn't. He wasn't a prisoner. He was keeping all the guards in check, so they wouldn't be fighting the war. I'm trying to think of a Chuck Norris joke, but they're not as easy to make up.
There's Lauren Holly there. Obviously, would I think the year later she would appear in Dumb and Dumber. Obviously, then I think she started a relationship with Jim Carrey, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. Like, it was a funny thing about it because they had a fun little relationship going along. I'm not sure if she was starring in the show at this stage in Picket Fences. I think it was. There was an old show called Picket Fences. She was playing a cop in that. Local town sheriff with Tom Skerritt, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's kind of like where she was getting more recognition.
Yeah, from 92 to 96 she was in that show, apparently.
Yeah, so this for about the same time. That's probably what got her cast in this. Couldn't you think of something better? And again, great casting. Like, there's no big name actors. It wasn't something that I thought about in the 90s where you need big name actors. It's probably something they more did in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. But even here...
I think in the case of this, it was like, it's... because they'd gone for an unknown with Joseph Scott Lee. I mean, he had done the Jungle Book, hadn't he, with Stephen Summers?
He done that later.
Was it later, did he?
He did it later. Because of the fame of this film, he did it that. Because he was doing bit parts in Miami Vice.
Oh, yeah, it was the following year he did Jungle Book.
And he did, he was, I think he had a guest appearance. He was a small role in Matlock.
Well, he's in Back to the Future Part 2, isn't he? As Biff's, one of Biff's, goons, as it were.
Griff. I think it was Griff. His grandson was Griff.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Yeah, I'm just trying to think who is it. But yeah, he says, unless you got power. Ha ha ha. He's that guy in the background when they're talking, when McFly can't go over the water.
That's right. This is a moment here where we start to see the sort of racism come into play.
Yeah.
With him obviously having to wait for a table for too long and the waiters letting other people through who were white. And... Yeah, it's you see it happening, and it's directed very simply, and it has maximum effect, and then we see it with her mother, which is really brutal.
Her mother part was brutal. There was truth to that as well. Her mother at the beginning was not very accepting of Bruce, and in that time period, as much as it is people to say, "Oh, how that's the way people were at that point." Like, I'm not giving an excuse. But you can buy it. She says one thing that really stuck with me because of my also ethnic background growing up. So yeah, just mentioning that, like there are points in this where even the mother says there's only one thing she says that has a bit of poignancy, and thinking about my own ethnic background, like I know why, because this is a lot of parents did this. I'll get in, when we get to the scene, we'll talk about it a bit more. But the whole thing, like this is like they've got chemistry. That's definitely for sure. Even like the actors between them.
Yeah, you buy into it, yeah, because their romance works totally on film. I don't think I've read anything where they sort of discuss how their working relationship on this, but it seems to sort of gel really well.
Yeah, and I think going back to the lesser named actors or first time actors, there's one thing I've noticed with this. I think everyone involved. It's one of the few movies ever really do this where everyone involved's hungry. They want to do a good job, even though it's low budget. And people are like, oh, I'm only doing this for peanuts. I don't care. Whatever. I'll just do it. Whatever. Like everyone is like, this is a movie that could make a big impact in our careers. Let's put a lot of effort. So obviously Jason's putting a lot of effort in his career. And again, Lauren, everyone, like this probably put her more on the map.
Yeah, for Jason. And this is like, to be honest, his first big starring role. He's the lead.
Exactly. So you got to think about that.
Yeah. He's going to be 100%, even more than that, to sort of deliver. Yeah. And I love this moment here where he's doing with the
Wooden Man.
That was it. Yeah. I've always seen one of those things. Think, oh, it should be right to do that. I should be okay to use it. And then like you see Jackie Chan use it in Rumble in the Bronx.
Oh yeah.
And it's so good. But I think if anyone had a quick go on it, they'd be like, ow. It's like my arms are killing me after like 2 punches.
Well, you'd be surprised how much you get. What's the name? Calcium deposit. Oh, is it calcium? I think so. In your knuckles. I remember when I started boxing like years ago. Like again, inspired by things like this. I started boxing in the punching bag. And I kept at it so much that the skin separated from my knuckles. I just remember that. Like, I didn't lose the outside skin. Whatever was attached to my knuckles, I could feel that they fell off. They were very loose, and I could feel like liquid in it, whatever you call it. And it got calcium. So if you do it long enough, you don't feel much pain afterwards.
That was big mitts of hands. Yeah.
Oh no, it's just I think I can't remember what it's called. There's a specific word for it. But the thing is, you do it long enough, I don't want to say you'll enjoy it, but you do get to the point where it's like you can punch with impunity, where it doesn't hurt as much.
She had just taken him to see, is it Breakfast at Tiffany's, isn't it?
Breakfast at Tiffany's.
So it shows you the sort of stereotyping they have in the film.
With Mickey Rooney.
It plays on that. Yeah, Mickey Rooney, yeah.
Mickey Rooney playing a very stereotypical...
Well, it's like, there's like John Wayne's like they painted his face up, big Genghis Khan. It's just like, oh my God. I was like, even when I was younger, when I saw that, I was just like, this is a bit weird. But,
which one? The John Wayne one?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, there's quite a few movies like that. Even Peter Sellers had done that during the 80s. It's like, well, that's a bit late. No, not the 80s.
No, the 70s. He did 70s, sorry, one of his last movies was something The Curse of Dr. Fu Manchu might have been. I don't know, but again, it's a different time. Like the only one time that I thought was a very good performance when Alec Guinness did it in Lawrence of Arabia, where he's playing Arab, but he did it so. Can you say the word? He did it respectfully. He did it non-comically. He did it non-disrespectfully. Where people want to try and put him in the same category as something like what Mickey Rooney done. And I don't think so. I think, given the circumstances, all right, he's not of Middle Eastern descent, Alec Guinness, but he did such a good role. Where here you can tell, like, Mickey Rooney especially, they said, oh, give him the buck teeth, give him the glasses, slick the hair back, do as much as you can to do the stereotypical. And again, this film, as we talked about, it's not in your face. Scenes like that it is, obviously. It's not like the whole film in your face, but there are little hints of it. And I think that's probably the best way to do it. Because you start to feel like it builds up for you as an audience member how sympathetic you are towards Bruce Lee and Asian people of the Asian immigration and the Asian community. Yeah. But it's not like right off in your face, like he gets off the boat, boo, go back. None of that.
It's also for me, growing up, a small village outside Cambridge at the time, and you don't have many Asian people around, and seeing it as a 10-year-old, you sort of get to understand the difficulties they had, and it comes a very good learning experience, and to sort of see people and see how they should be treated, and not treated in a sort of disparaging way or sort of racist way. Treat everyone with respect, and I think. For me as a kid, seeing Bruce Lee, it sort of showed you that that sort of breaking away from that stereotyping you'd see on film and cartoons, and for me, I I grew up watching Superman. It embodies what it's a all American thing. But to me, a real life Superman was Bruce Lee. And he wasn't the white man; he was an Asian guy. He wasn't 6'4". But he had the power to fucking defeat loads of people. In my mind, on the big screen.
Going back to that sort of like history of growing up as well, mine's a bit interesting. I don't want to say mine's interesting. Mine's kind of different as well because I was in a small Australian country town, and because we were Greek, my parents were Greek immigrants, I did cop a lot of that. But next door to me, like next door to my dad's takeaway, we had the Chinese restaurant. And they had like 2 kids as well. They had 2 sons. We were 3 brothers. They had 2 sons. And we'd be playing all the time as well. We'd be out the back when our parents were working. We'd be like, whatever, we'd just be mucking around in the back because I can't really go into much detail because it was just all empty tire yards and whatever. But we never had any kind of issues of in that we never thought, oh, this person's Chinese, we're not going to hang around with them. None of like that. But we did as well in small country towns. They did and we did as well. Cop a lot of ethnic sort of like, oh, what are you doing here? Go back to your own country. But from kids, let's be honest, not from adults. Very, very few unless they were drunk, sort of like racist people. But even growing up, we had some of our own issues where they say, go back to your own country, da-da-da-da. But that's just kids trying to be mean and nasty.
Oh, yes, what kids are sometimes. Also, this sequence here, with the training sort of montage, the music here by Randy Edelman, or Edelman, one of the most famous
it goes into
music.
So many trailers. Goes into so many trailers.
Forrest Gump uses it, I think.
Forrest Gump, I think, uses. I'm trying to think what other movies, but it did pop up around.
I think with Mel Gibson, may use.
Or was it We Were Soldiers?
Perhaps.
I think We Were Soldiers. One or the other, because I remember...
There's a list somewhere with all the names and of different films. But the score to this, I'll discuss a little bit more later on. But this sequence here is like, it brings it back. It brings the demon back to sort of shock you. You think, oh, this could be an earthquake. What's going on? And suddenly, boom, through the glass. Yeah.
And you were mentioning before, I didn't get a chance to finish about watching Bruce Lee films. Again, we didn't see, I didn't remember us, we didn't say, watching Bruce Lee as a Chinese man, whatever. We were just watching an action star, action hero. But for us, there were parts of it that did relate because we saw a lot of the roles that he played. He played something similar to this situation where he played a stranger in a different land, a different country, and he had certain oppressions. And you see like the little guy, the underdog fight back. And for us kids, going back to us ethnics, watching Bruce Lee, there are a lot of ethnic people in Greece. There are a lot of ethnic people like Greeks, Italians, Turkish, whatever, in Australia who just loved Bruce Lee. It became such a big deal. So a lot of those Bruceploitation movies, we kind of like fed that market in Australia. We would watch those movies because we watched Bruce Lee, we watched the little guy take on the oppression sort of thing, like the bigger dude. So he did relate a lot to us. But yeah, just watching Bruce, he broke so many barriers for that reason. Because not many people would sit there and say, what am I going to watch this for? Who's this guy? And again, you just get so involved with his action, with his charisma. You stop thinking anything about race. You think about this is a superhero. This is a person who dedicated his life to his body. And it just shows on screen. And there goes the demon now. The demon just suddenly appears. He's gone again.
I think it should have been like a dream where he woke up from it. Because that implies that it's kind of that was in reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he should have like been at his table and gone, oh, and sort of woken up. So because it was as Linda had told her that it was part of his dreams. He's been haunted by this thing. But this is all part in play to the myth, the legend of Bruce Lee, and as we've seen throughout the since he's died, there's more sort of stories come out that he was this more powerful than most people, whatever, and it plays on the myths, doesn't it? With all classic tales, where maybe in 100, 200 years later on, he'll be seen as this god. It's all these kind of things added to it,
because. You and me, because we're a bit older, you mentioned, I think you got into Bruce in the 90s, I think it was.
Yes, it was early 90s, yeah. I'm 20 years too late to the table. They are too young now.
Well, yeah, again, going back to how we grew up, we watched it a lot, because I had older brothers as well, and older cousins. I was watching this back in the mid to, 1984, 85. They were kind of like the first movies we'd rent, we talked about this in the End of the Dragon thing, at the gas station, they had the VHSs. And for me, I had another resurgence in the 90s as you did, probably because of this film. And I was just getting so back into it. I had to find the old videos, and they weren't so easy to find back then. Not many places had them.
No, they didn't know, because for me it was like maybe the later part of the 90s where they had these box sets. Like, I think it was like Forefront Video or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, these sort of box sets, but they didn't have Enter the Dragon because it was owned by Warner Brothers. But you had everything else, and including Game of Death 2.
Yeah, that didn't make sense because I only had like 2 deleted scenes. And going quickly into the resurgence, only recently, the way you're saying that Bruce Lee's become like this mythical type thing, it has annoyed me a bit. Where for me, people are starting to take it too far. Where I feel like a different kind of fan, old school fan, like you and me from back in the time when very few people knew of Bruce Lee. I don't want to say very few, but it wasn't as mainstream. And now he's become this mainstream type guru to a lot of the younger generation. Like, oh, Bruce Lee, have you heard of this guy? He's this amazing thing. I said, yeah, a lot of us did know of Bruce Lee back then.
I suppose if I was growing up in the 80s and a bit older and being sort of self-aware of what Bruce Lee was, or what he meant to people in terms of pop culture at that point, I couldn't answer that question. But it was, I suppose, maybe it shifted towards like people were seeing Jackie Chan now as this kind of new, like, that king of martial arts. I suppose maybe this had reignited some of that passion, and
I think it did. I think this movie actually did.
I suppose for me it sort of helped sort of me to go back to trying to find the other films and sort of explore more of his history, because all I'd seen was Enter the Dragon, and my dad saying, look, he's dead, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this. And I was upset, and so having this was kind of like a little bit of a cushion to sort of enjoy more kind of Bruce Lee related stuff. And then making the effort to explore the other films, and I think out of all of them, really, I think Fist of Fury is probably still my favourite out of the Hong Kong ones.
I lean more towards Big Boss the older I get.
Oh, dear, okay, yeah.
And just if you want to stop and think about that for a second, I'm just going from my parents' point of view, because they were big into Bruce Lee as well. Back in 84, 85, I'll say 84 because that was one of the earliest time, 85, when I was watching on VHS and we were watching it together, you got to stop and think, Bruce Lee had only died 11 years earlier. So that's like saying, let's think about right now, we're talking about an actor who died in 2011.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that long ago at all.
It doesn't seem that long ago, so the impact was still like, it's not very easy to describe another person here in that situation, another actor like who was that big of an impact to say, look, this person's dead, but he only died like 11 years ago. And now it's going to be 50 years next year. It's 50 years since he died.
Yeah, crazy.
And I'm just stopping and think, wow, like that. I was at a point when I'm watching him when he only just passed away like 11 years ago. And now it's gone him.
Lauren Holly here is brilliant, because obviously now her mother's just gone, I don't agree with this relationship. And when she screams out Bruce, I mean, that is they used in the trailer, and it works so bloody well. Because the trailer for this movie is so bloody good. Like
Rain always does that as well. In a scene like in the rain, like, come back to me.
Because in the teaser trailer of Dragon Bruce Lee story, there's no dialogue, it's just the music, right? Which the composer did specifically for the teaser. And that teaser has 2 shots in it which aren't in the film. One where this lady picks up this kind of sheet. She's like, I think she's naked. I think it's like a sex scene from somewhere else.
Yeah. I was rewatching that, trying to figure out who that was.
Yeah, where that was from.
And who was it? A specific actress in the film we've already seen?
Yeah.
I couldn't figure that part.
And there's a bit where he's on his motorbike and he hits the car and he flies over it. I think that's obviously in Hong Kong, because he's wearing that sort of like blue and black sort of jacket, like bike jacket. But that was it. I think I recall deleted scenes wise, which I've not seen later on. Maybe the bike bit is on the Laserdisc.
No,
on
I
DVD
think
and stuff like
the bike scene. If I'm trying to think if we're talking about the same scene, I think the bike scene was in college when he was delivering food. He did a Spider-Man thing.
Yeah, I know he's a Spider-Man thing, but he's wearing like he's not wearing like a delivery kind of uniform thing, or like he's wearing like a proper like bike jacket. So yeah, but the trailer for this movie is one of my favourites, and emotional punch to it. It's really good.
Jerome Sprout. Now this is based on one of Bruce Lee's. Like Bruce Lee's first student, which was Jesse Glover.
Oh right.
Yeah, Jesse. So even like the name Jerome Sprout, they kind of like tried a similar Jerome Jesse with a J, whatever we're going to say it. But this is quite accurate with like Bruce Lee's first student was like an African American, and it was Jesse Glover. Jesse has been in 1 or 2 interviews, but he didn't follow through as much as like other people. He wasn't like that big of a, I'm teaching people now. It's nothing like that.
Was it like I do recall like the cost to do Bruce's lessons are really expensive.
That usually came to the actors. He usually charged like a lot of money to Hollywood actors.
Right. Okay.
So he charged like something like astronomical, like $500 an hour.
Blimey.
there's a receipt to Steve McQueen.
That was like peanuts to them, though. So
that's the point. And you're only seeing him once, maybe once a week. He'd be training with Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
So like 500 is like, I'll take you to dinner. They probably paid more for dinner. Yeah, I like that. Here they're going more for the Wing Chun style, which they probably should have done earlier in the film. They should have avoided trying to affiliate his fighting anything to do with anything to do with Jeet Kune Do, because at this stage he was just basically in Wing Chun.
No, this is all true, isn't it? How this all takes place in terms of like the other Chinese schools of martial arts are obviously very annoyed that he's teaching their skills to the white man, as it were.
Bit more complicated than that.
It is a bit, yeah. That's Luce's sort of description of that.
Yeah, because the thing about Bruce was not the first person to be teaching non-Asians. He was teaching African Americans, Caucasians, whatever. But the problem was, because Bruce again wasn't pure blood. This goes back to what happened with Yip Man, because he couldn't teach a non-pure blood. Bruce Lee not being 100% Chinese, and because he was bragging about, the old ways are no good, I can teach you better ways, it really pissed them off. Where it says, who are you to go teach now? You're not allowed. If you want to teach, you can teach Chinese people, fair enough. But we're not going to let you do what we did for you. That was a one-off type thing. You know what I mean? But sure. So that's kind of what. But they use the excuse, well, you're not teaching. You're teaching non-Chinese, so that's against tradition. That's basically it was blanketed. The main reason they did it was because of his heritage not being full Chinese. They're saying, who are you to come here now and then to say I can do it better than the other teachers, that and that and that. So it kind of is a blanketed thing.
Because obviously the gentleman that plays his challenger is it's called Johnny's son, isn't it? But it's Zhong Cheng. Zhong Cheng obviously was the fight choreographer in the film.
Okay.
But it's all like, because once you sort of look into Bruce's life, how he he doesn't get kicked in the back and doesn't break his back. No. He just lifted a weight incorrectly. You know what I mean? Like he didn't warm up properly. It's so funny. Like, he didn't actually break his back. He stubbed his toe or something.
Oh God.
Yeah. But yeah, so that back injury sort of screwed him up for years, and that sort of put him on the painkillers, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, going back to right there, what they were talking about, the challenge, they even mentioned the actual challenger, Wong Jack Man.
That's right.
And they said, we've got complaints from Lu Zhou Wen or Wong Jack Man.
Yeah.
And funny enough, they don't actually have him fight Wong Jack Man. They have some
doesn't he go to his dojo as well? They fight at Bruce's dojo.
Yes, they do, and
because I recall the stories they're just sort of running around in a circle where Bruce is chasing him, and then he sort of pins him down.
Exactly, and this kind of leads to the fact that Bruce was out of shape, because he says, "Geez, I mean, I should have finished that in 60 seconds."
Of course, Stitch.
And here I'm breathing hard. I'm out of shape. I can't do this. So this is. It's so interesting, because that was the turning point. That was the turning point in Bruce's career. That was in Bruce's physique and martial arts. Everything. It changed his philosophy, because he said, "Well, geez, I'm not as good as I think I am.
Yeah.
So what am I doing? And why can't I fight as good as I should?"
Also, does he? Like doesn't the book get published after he'd passed away?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the Tao Jeet Kune Do. I've got a copy of that. It's a very good book.
So have I, yeah.
That's so good. I love it. I just couldn't track it down for years. I found a copy of it in Greece, but it was in total Greek, so I couldn't read the damn thing. So when my brother went back to Australia, still the late 90s, I said to get me a copy.
I think I found it in
He didn't. He couldn't find it. I found the copy. Sorry, I did.
I found it in the 90s. I think not long after this movie. That was in Heffer's bookshop or something in Cambridge. And I was like, oh wow. And it's it was going back to the thing of reading a magazine to learn how to do, you know what I mean, 5 easy steps to be a martial artist or something. So it was. Yeah. As a kid, I found it quite difficult to sort of take in and digest and sort of put that into practice. I just didn't have the dedication. I was just I just wanted it because it was Bruce's book,
Yeah, I'm similar thing, but I took a different approach. I never read it for fighting. I read it because by that stage I found it in 2002, I think it was, when I went back to Australia for a visit, because I got mixed up. My brother got me a different Bruce Lee book. But I liked the philosophy of it. I was so into the philosophy of how to approach things, how to mentally see things. What's the best way to So I was much more into the philosophy than the fighting, because I had no one to spar with. I had no one to practice with. So for me, it wasn't something I was thinking about. But just reading the philosophies of You know, I can't. There's one in particular that I love. Quote, and I'm gonna say I love it, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Where it's like talent presents its own opportunities, but drive and determination presents its own opportunities, therefore making its own talent. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but the idea was just about determination. Let's just put it that way. Let's just end it at that, so I don't try to sound like I know something when I can't remember.
It's got the guy, Johnny Sun's brother, Luke Sun, is by Ong Soo Han. He was in Kickboxer. He's in a bunch of movies, just playing a guy who gets beaten up. And this is probably his largest role, I recall, like, because he comes back later and fights him on a set of Big Boss. Like, I know all your tricks, read your book, whatever, you know.
This is clearly Jason doing Bruce Lee's Way of the Dragon warm-up, almost verbatim.
Yeah, he does it with the hands thing is really cool.
Exactly, does the back sort of flex, yeah.
But it shows like the difference in style of warm-up, where his is like so much more aggressive, and his is just more like, let's just get these muscles like relaxed and stretched out a little bit, you know.
Linda was, here's the thing, Linda was present at that fight. She was actually pregnant with Brandon at that stage. So it wasn't this so traditional, like one of the actors, I can't remember the name, the character he played, was in Big Trouble in Little China. He was playing the guy that said, "And what the hell is Gracie Law doing here?"
Yes, it is him. It's him. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
It's always that delivery where they're saying, "Oh."
Well, as she walks in, she's like proper hamming it up straight away, isn't she?
And they all talk about China's got a lot. That actor there to the left, China's got a lot of hells. And then he goes, "And what the hell is Gracie Lott doing here?" It's just great. I love just these actors are so good. I love when I love in movies when they know the role is supposed to be cheesy and they go with it. So like Leslie Nielsen, where they don't go cheesy, but they're on that borderline.
They know the tone of it, don't they?
They know the tone of it. I always love
this bit here. The sort of the connecting, like blocking and sort of, you know, it's very sort of. It's not as fast as Hong Kong cinema, but it works. You know, it seems slightly more realistic in a way because I don't know, it's not too fast. You know.
No, exactly. And Bruce again real life was very fast.
Because they shoot at a higher frame rate, don't they? Don't they shoot at a higher frame rate in Hong Kong, like 23 frames or 22?
Yeah, I think 22, something like that. Yeah, exactly.
That's what Steve Barron would do for Ninja Turtles the movie. They'd shoot all the fight scenes at a slightly higher frame rate.
Yeah, and being in those costumes, that's more excusable. I shouldn't be complaining about it because I've made the same complaint over and over again, but this is like, it bugs me because it's the one thing I would have liked to have seen. A progressionist martial art, because I can't see that much difference now than what he does later.
It's true, because in the first fight we see in the Cha-Cha sort of dancing hall, his style is the same there.
Yeah, and he's supposed to have progressed.
Yeah, we don't see an evolution of it, really. I suppose the evolution we see, well, little bits of it's like kind of the Wing Chun style of teaching the students, but now he's become a little bit more flexible and like there's more like moving around like a boxer. Yeah.
And
but that's all I can sort of take from it.
Yeah, exactly. But the one thing I would have liked to have seen, because he talked to Chuck Norris about it soon after in the Long Beach demonstration that he did, where Wing Chun did not kick above the waist. So that's one thing. Wing Chun always kicked. There was no point kicking above the waist, so they'd always kick to the legs or the hip, whatever. And Chuck Norris was the guy that kind of explained to Bruce, said, "Yeah, that's in a lot of respects that's good, but it'd be good to kick anywhere. So you got to practice with that." And that's when Bruce sort of started, "Yeah, why not? I'll kick higher." So for me, like even here, like I would have made the suggestion, because it's if you can't have it as close as possible to Wing Chun, at least keep the kicks low, keep the kicks below the waist. Let's not see any high kicks. Little subtle differences like that, I think, might have made a big difference.
Obviously here, because he scratched his chest, it's very much like a throwback to
Enter the Dragon, you know, yeah.
Enter the Dragon, yeah. It's a bit, I don't know, they're odd Easter eggs to put in, you know what I mean, in weird places, you know what I mean?
But it's such an iconic image, like, just to see, you don't see it that often, but just to see someone cut someone with a great physique to be slashed like either knives or nails, whatever. It's just got something about it, just so cool.
I remember my old DVD, like when it cuts to Linda in hospital, you get this pause for like 2 seconds because of the dual layered DVDs.
Oh, that old stuff, yeah.
And it was like the players weren't quick enough. I was just like, what the hell? I was always a bit like confused.
Yeah, it's funny what you remember when you grow up. It's funny what you remember saying, oh.
Because I've still got my, I've kept it for all these years, Dragon of Bruce Lee story on DTS Laserdisc. The sound mix is incredible. I've always kept that because the sound mix is so impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I feel kind of bad thinking about this. I don't own a copy of this whatsoever. I don't think I've ever owned, because I have owned a lot of, especially Bruce Lee movies. I own pretty much all of them. And Brandon, and I've never had a copy of this, which is funny, because all my memories come from VHS, because I probably rented the crap out of that. I probably rented it more than twice and watched it over and over.
Old pan and scan videotape, you know. I think this is shot Super 35, actually, not anamorphic, which it seems. I mean, because it makes it easier for them to pan and scan for TV, I suppose. But it was. I think they'd. Wasn't the doctor said that there was a wall that he couldn't walk again?
Yes.
And he had shown them that he could again, but it was always in a lot of pain.
Going back, he did damage his nerve. It's sacral nerve, I think it was, when he was doing. I talked to you on the Bruce Lee on the End of the Dragon, where he was doing the exercise Good Mornings, and he was training with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and it's a very dangerous exercise where if you don't warm up, if people don't know, I don't know if they call it by a different name these days, but back then it was called Good Mornings, where you put the barbell behind your neck as you would do for a squat, and instead of bending downwards with your knees, you bend forwards with your back. So your legs are straight up and you bend forward. So think of the same position as squatting. You got the barbell on your back with the weights, and instead of squatting down, you're upright and you bend your top section down, and that's why it's called Good Mornings, like you're raising up and down. Now that needs a lot of warming up. They say do at least 10 minutes warm up before you do anything like that. And Bruce, for whatever reason, because he was always very, I don't want to say tempered, but he did have a temper, a rush type person. If he was like, oh, I'm busy.
Impatient.
Impatient, perfect word. Let's just do it. Bah, 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 bah. And he really stuffed up his back. He really, the worst thing that could have happened did happen to him. I mean, you could say the worst thing could have been paralysis, but in that context of weightlifting. Like, one of the worst things like a weightlifter can do is like tear a muscle that bad. Or a nerve, especially.
This is amazing performance from Jason. Just seemed just like going absolutely livid. Just leave me. I'm screwed. You know.
And as an actor, being in that machine couldn't help either. But if I was a director, I would have literally, to get that emotion, I would have kept him in that for hours. I would have said, nah, take, and do it again.
Everyone takes a break. Well, let's go for lunch. Everyone just leaves in there.
And that's what. If you're gonna get an emission of anger, that's usually I'd recommend it. Like the actor might hate you for it at the moment. But after that, you really get it. I think Stanley Kubrick did that a lot. He used to get, especially with The Shining, to frustrate the actor, he'd get him to do it again and again, even if the take was good, just to get that frustration.
Do you remember, the early days of this sort of production of this, when they were going to make it? They'd asked Brandon Lee to play his father, which is a bit of a weird thing to do. I mean, I know because Brandon didn't want to be following in the same footsteps as his father. He wanted to be an actor, but then he came to realise that I should maybe use some of my talents as a martial artist to sort of get me some work, and that's what happens. But then obviously inevitably with the crow, and he gets shot. But yeah, it seems a bit of a lazy approach to sort of say, oh, let's just get Brandon to play his dad.
Not only lazy, he even said, I can't imagine kissing my own mum. Because imagine you're in this movie doing a sex scene with the character that is your mum. I mean, it's not his mum, but imagine, oh, Linda, and like, oh my god.
Yeah, the emotional like hoops you got to jump through to do that. It's just like
But he did the right move. But his sister's in this movie, so you can't totally.
Well, yeah, that's fine because it's a cameo. Maybe Brandon should have had a cameo. You know what I mean? He should have been like a reporter or something, or someone who's witnesses to fight at the tournament thing where he showcases Jeet Kune Do. Something like that.
Maybe something like that. It would have been like, I'm trying to think, is there someone in Bruce Lee's history, in the movies that he did, that Brandon could have been a character within, play that person? Just trying to think.
Yeah.
I can't think of anyone in particular. I mean,
suppose they didn't throw a little more cameos with Bruce Lee's students, or have Bob Wall maybe as sort of a, maybe sort of commentating on on the fight we see. I don't know. As a filmmaker, if I was back then, in Rob Cohen's shoes, I would have maybe gone a little bit sort of dug a little bit deeper to sort of find some extra hidden cameos for people. I suppose that's in the world we are now, where with Easter eggs is kind of a big thing for for fans.
Yeah, and they do overdo it sometimes, and they do overplay it. Here, they do have cameos. They do have a few people, which I forgot to, like I mentioned Nancy Kwan, she actually knew Bruce. Then you go further on, you got, you'll see in a sick when he starts acting, Van Williams. And I'll point out another cameo as well, like there are 1 or 2 cameos you might not know. But there are a few. I won't take it away, but yeah.
I suppose, I suppose in that case, Rob's gone for something a bit more subtle and not so
I
obvious.
think the more we think the more I think about this film anyway, I don't know how you feel about it, but I know you might agree with me. He has gone for the right amount of subtlety in almost everything. Like, again, with the demon, we had that big period of gap without seeing the demon, where it's supposed to play such a pinnacle role in this film, where another director might have kept putting him in like 2 or 3 times earlier, and the movie might have just gone overboard. Where
a classic one would have been where he looks in the mirror and
sees the demon.
In the mirror, he sees a demon. Like,
it
sort of gives him a quick fright.
I get flashbacks from Nightmare on Elm Street 3. That one scares the crap out of me, where Freddy does that to Patricia Arquette, or is it Anna Arquette? No, Anna Arquette's the other one. To Patricia Arquette's character, which she wakes up, she thinks she was in a dream, and then she sees Freddy, and Freddy's hand grabs her from the faucet. That, again, that's nightmare stuff. That's right there. Oh, man.
So soon we, her mother, gets to meet Brandon, and it's all is essentially forgiven because she.
I didn't get a chance to kind of set on that, but one thing that she did say, which kind of did say, oh yeah, she does have one minor point. I'm not saying I agree with it, where she said, what will your child be? They'll be white and they'll be Oriental. They'll be mixed and they won't be accepted by either race. As much as it does sound cruel, that is a bit of a point. There is that even within your ethnicity, even if you say, oh, this is my ethnicity, there is still racism. And that's the thing that some people don't want to talk about. Where, so again, Bruce went through it. If he wasn't rich, it would have been worse for him. And same with other people. Like, if you could be like a full-blooded person born in a different country, and you go back to the country of your parents, they still will say, oh, you bloody Aussie, you bloody English, you bloody American, go back to your own country. I experienced that, and that's quite shocking as well, but there is a point to that. And this was in the 90s, and her point in the 60s was, yeah. But I guess she mostly said it because she didn't want her daughter to be with an Asian American person, so yeah.
Well, it's all just like something traditional, sort of, I think it's kind of, in her mind, wants her daughter to follow a similar path.
Yeah, and my parents did something. My father was something similar like that. He said, oh, you should marry a Greek girl, you'll be happy, da-da-da-da. But that's how, when you grow up in certain places, in certain times, back in that era, that's what they kind of do. They kind of, their parents instill it into their kids, and their kids instill it into so forth. So, it's all about progression as people go along. It does happen naturally. It does happen. And even back then, Bruce and Linda's marriage, I don't think was recognized by several states. Like, they had issues. No, it wasn't, from what I gathered, because at that stage it wasn't. That's a nice little interesting pan-in. They went through
through the curtains. Yeah, there's I would love that as a movie prop. That one, the cover with Jason Scott Lee on it.
That would be interesting to find that.
I'm sure maybe Jason has it himself.
Yeah, I'd keep it too. I'd keep it too.
Yeah. It's my book now.
Yeah. Yeah, like going back to this book. Yeah, this book was released after Bruce. So again, there are bits and pieces where they don't. But this part here, it's good to see that. It's good to see that the mother did eventually, because it did happen in real life. The mother did eventually, once she started to warm up to Bruce, she started to see why her daughter fell in love with him, and of course the kids as well. Like, she fell in love with her.
And Bruce doesn't show any animosity to her. He just goes, "Hello, Grandma." You know what I mean? So he just like starts putting on his charm.
I have seen one photo. I think 1 or 2 photos with Bruce with his mother-in-law, and I think it was on the set of Fist of Fury. Like, she came visit Hong Kong, because by that stage they were in a couple of years in Hong Kong. And the mother does kind of have that stoic 60s, 50s mother type look, like you see in old photos. And Bruce is like leaning next to her with a big old smile. So he didn't, from what I gathered, from what Linda's interviews had said, like, they did start to warm up to each other. They didn't, like, Bruce didn't have any animosity. But she was just the typical older, mother type thing.
Generation.
Oh, it's the generation, But she did did fall like in love with Bruce. She did, get to warm up to him.
I love how Lauren Holly's sort of with her makeup and stuff. She's got proper like mum hair now from the 90s sort of style of hair.
Yeah, because Linda was when Linda had short hair in all the photos I've seen. I've never seen her with long hair. And even when she met Bruce, she was always short, 60s bouffant. And this is actually quite stylish too. This is. pretty
yeah.
stylish hair at this stage, but she did have short hair going on. I'm thinking about they took the effort to do it with Lauren, but they didn't do it with Jason to do his more accurate.
Well, yeah, because Jason's hair kind of stays pretty much
The same all the way through. Like,
yeah.
I'm thinking, listen to me. People are going to say in the commentary, Michael goes on about the hair again. Stop talking about the hair. And okay, I'll stop. That's it. That's my last complaint about the hair.
Well, they tend to do that in movies where they do make an effort to sort of show the sort of the change, don't they? Like with their clothes.
What was the name of the
and their
movie?
style.
Stewie Cox, Walk Hard.
Oh yeah.
All the way through every decade, every time they change a year, his hair would be something different. He'd go through like the Beatles phase. He'd go through the Johnny Cash phase. I'm just thinking about that movie. That is so good, and that's a biopic that's not a biopic. And it's just such a good movie because people thought it was the real deal. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because that movie is just so underrated and it's so good. When they do the typical freeze frame at the end, where he's got his fist up and he said Stewie Cox died 5 minutes after this concert, and then they cut to another still where he's grabbing his heart, and then they show this fake actor who's supposed to be the real Dewey Cox on stage, and it's just, anyway. Going back to this part here, Bruce was, his recovery was one of the worst things that was going on because he was in bed for like 6 months.
Put him out of work. He was having to pay the bills, weren't they? So
yeah, it was a nightmare at that stage, and I imagine it would be. I can't imagine how bad it must be to be that Ed Parker's first karate championship. Now that's a poignant. You're going back to the cameos. This person here, the guy that's playing Ed Parker, is actually Ed Parker's son.
That's right. Yeah,
so Ed Parker Jr. So again, going back, Rob Cohen was conscious of that. Like they said, let's bring in these people.
But this is like totally different because obviously you can see the footage online. Yep. It's like a massive big hall, like a basketball size court.
I was gonna say like it's a massive big hall. Yeah, Bruce did do these sort of things here. Like it's funny because they're mixing the 2 points because Bruce did go to a high school and do this exact same thing when dressed very similar way where he talked about his thing.
Because what you can see online is basically just like him wearing his kind of black outfit, and he's got his students he's training with, or he's showing them what he can do to the audience. Does the one finger push up and
the two finger
push ups, and then does the one each punch, which is pretty mesmerizing. It's very cool to see.
Is that bloodstains on that guy's shirt? What the hell was that?
Yeah, what the hell?
I just noticed that. I'm thinking, what is that? That's stylish. I thought, what was there a fight already and he got blood? But yeah, that's what it does take away because that was a big haul, but it probably goes back to budget. But that was like a massive haul, and Bruce was in his traditional Hong Kong type outfit.
This weirdly looks like the same place that his apartment's in, like the same block.
They probably did.
I don't know. It's
downstairs.
Like,
upstairs we do that. Downstairs we do that.
It's quite small actually. I'll fight him. Yeah. And just like
love the pan. This movie's got some nice pan-ins, especially like on a. Like when he walked in the first place at the beginning in Hong Kong, where it did the panning on his eyes and his glasses, and just now it's I'll fight him. They did the pan into his face. I beat him before. I beat him again. I just love some of the quotes of this movie. They're just so good.
It's a good fight scene because I love the bit at the end because it's again they use this in the trailer where he does that flying kick at the end and kicks him out of the ring, and he gets a lot of height on that.
Watching the real demonstration, because the full demonstration had not been online not until recently. Like for many years, we saw clips and
it
photos.
wasn't bad condition, wasn't it? The footage was
exactly.
So someone's obviously taken it and restored it.
Yeah, and watching the actual Bruce Lee fighting, it's so amazing because it's got nothing. It's nothing like he does in the movies. He's very there are people who've analyzed it and studied it, where Bruce is very he's putting into practice his Jeet Kune Do style about distance, about intercepting. And if you watch Bruce in that, he's got his I'm trying to think because he's back to front. Oh yeah, because he's boxing. He learned how to box, but he boxed with his right. He's got padding on, but he's got his right arm extended out a lot of the times to keep the distance. So when the person comes in, he knows when and how to kick perfectly. And it's just such an amazing fight to watch Bruce do that because it's so. Obviously, it's realistic. He's actually sparring, where it's just one of those things where you'd like to see that evolution, but this is 1993, so we're talking about a gap of like nearly 20 years. 10, 20, no, more than 20 years. But let's say 20 plus years when the that footage came out of watching Bruce Lee actually how he fought compared to what he did in movies. So this only had to go off of his students and the movie thing. So I can imagine the director said, "No, we'll just stick with the movie style." And here we go.
I love it cuts to these other martial artists who are like gonna be like, I don't know, marking points, all completely out of shape, compared.
But that was Bruce's gesture, the way he did that. That's actually Bruce's gesture.
Yeah.
He did they actually did that in that tournament
That's
we're
right,
talking about, which he didn't do in the traditional fight, which is interesting. I didn't, maybe I wasn't paying attention. Let's say 60 seconds. Again, not an impossible feat. Like some boxing matches can finish in less than 20. No, I'm actually just watching the fight now, so I guess you and me are both into it.
Yeah, I know. Same here. Yeah, just sort of see the impacts.
The back. Like,
he's building up his cheek. Yeah, just explode.
Yeah, and I just love the ticking, like it clicks
and
the
heartbeat.
Yeah. No, this is credit where credit's due. This is a well-directed film. He might have deviated, but again, panning in. David Egby, the cinematographer. I'm giving him the credit to that.
I love the high kick he does. Whack.
Yeah, boom.
Down. And he's hopping around. Classic Bruce.
See, that's what would have made it look so good. If he was sticking with low kicks before, right now, if this was the introduction of Bruce introducing the high kicks, it would have been like, what's this guy doing? It would have made that shift.
Robert Wagner there, watching. He's the producer of Green Hornet, that's supposed to be, isn't he?
He's playing, oh, jeez, I hate trying to think off the top of my head. Sometimes I forget. William Dozier. Bill Dozier. I say William
Krieger?
Bill, yeah.
Or Dozier?
No, Dozier.
They might have changed the name then. Because on Wiki it says Krieger. Yeah.
Krieger. I've never heard the name before.
Might have changed it for legal stuff.
But
I don't know.
Who knows? Maybe. But is that the character he's playing here?
Yeah.
Krieger. Oh, so he's playing a character called Krieger. Yeah, probably for legal stuff. But the real person was William Dozier.
Right, yeah. Producer the Batman.
Had produced the Batman. Yeah. Ba-boom.
And here we go. And the great scream.
There are great moves here. Yeah.
Whack.
Yeah.
That is good.
So good. No, I'm actually so far into it. That is pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's a good fight scene. It stands up.
Who's controlling that stopwatch? I'm just thinking, what is the... I've never seen a stopwatch, because that's like a swimming pool stopwatch. They never stop. Unless they got a flick switch, I guess. But who's like, oh, yep, my job's to turn it on and off.
Oh, look, there you go. Look at the background. That's his trainer.
Oh, that's the guy. That's, what's his name?
Jerry Petite.
That's right. Yeah, Jerry.
Cool.
Oh,
here we go.
Didn't notice that until you start thinking about, oh, there you go, Easter eggs. So I guess you got to keep an eye out more. There probably are a few. I mean, again...
Look, there's Jackie Chan. He got punched through a wall. It was like...
I'm just thinking of an old Australian Greek TV show. Hey, Effie, it's Jackie Chan there. It's weird. It's just it's an odd segment. It's hard to explain. It's just one of the guys they were working with try to infiltrate a Japanese restaurant.
The sound wasn't on, but I got a gist of it.
Oh, combing my hair with the fork.
Yeah.
That's Lionel Hutz.
That's right, yeah.
I just watched an episode of Matlock. The sound wasn't on, but I got the gist of it. I missed that character.
I do as well. Honestly, that's the actual Bruce Lee, isn't it? Because you see Bruce again, like the real footage where he's they're watching the Big Boss premiere, and you see like a little bit on screen.
66. Is that accurate? 66? Oh, it must be.
Yeah, because it's around the same time as it was Batman TV show was
66.
68. I think it was 82. It was 82 years.
No, Batman was before.
Was it?
Yeah, it was before. That's the reason why they did.
Maybe was it the film then in 66 they did. I'm sure.
The film was the introduction to the second season. Because first they did season 1. That was so good. Then I did a movie, which was before season 2.
Okay.
And I think... So I'm trying to think, 66 might have been when... look, it could have been early 66 was Batman, late 66 was the Green Hornet. I don't want to overemphasize because I might be wrong. I like this. I like where he says, oh, do you think you can jump these last 3 steps?
I'll try. It's like...
I've been on sets where producers have talked to actors like that, and make it like, can you do something special and just skip over this broke.
Well, the Batman TV show was from January 66 to March of 68.
I thought, early 66. So it's probably could be the Green Hornet might have been late 66.
Yeah, so Green Hornet's going to be kicking in around the kind of same time because they do have because they do a crossover episode, wasn't there?
Yep. There's a funny thing about that as well because Burt Ward, who played Robin, had this big deal because it's in his audition tape where he's a black belt in judo, and he's doing some flips and whatever. And he was crapping on about, I'm not going to have... or Bruce Lee was supposed to get his ass kicked by Robin. Kato was supposed to get his ass... Bruce Lee, I'm not going to get my ass kicked by this loser. And because Robin was like, I've got more star power, there was this back and forth. And Bruce was telling everyone on stage, on the set, I'm going to kick the shit out of him. I'm going to beat him up. And Robin was scared shitless. Burt Ward was scared of the whole idea. It's like, there's a rumor going around, this Asian master of martial art is going to beat the shit out of you. And Bruce refused to obviously take it lightly, and there were scenes where it was like flinching him, and Robin started flinching and backing off, and people on the set were doing the chicken which is fitting because he's a Robin.
I love that the stuntman there's got a mullet, right? They would not have had a mullet back in
everyone's got a mullet
in the 60s. Green Hornet was from 66 to 67, so so it would have
it's accurate. So here I am wasting 10 times of people's listening. There's Van Williams, the actual lead, formerly the director of this episode, the guy who's cut. So that's Van Williams. That's the guy who's playing this Green Hornet. Like, he was the Green Hornet.
Oh my god! Okay, I didn't know that.
So there you go. There's your cameos. Like, you got a few here and there.
I love this bit here. This is the back lot. Sorry, at Warner Brothers. Is it? I think it's
must be.
Or is it Fox? I think it is Warner Brothers.
This is Universal, so it's probably Universal Studio.
Sorry,
because it's a Universal film. This is a Universal. This is most likely Universal Studios because again. So where's the clock tower from Back to the Future?
Yeah, it's always like I don't know. Maybe it's Warner's because of the that sort of like facade they've used. Because often you see it in like Friends and like the Adventures of Superman.
Did this kind of make a cameo in? This kind of looks like it could have been used as Gotham City.
Yeah,
I'm trying to picture it at night. It's about the same time. They still would have. I know the Gotham City. No, Batman Returns was in the States. The first Batman was in UK. It was in London, I think. Elstree Studios. Pinewood, one or the other. Yeah. But you think about it. Wow, look, that's a pretty big set. And look, the panning, the whole camera's panned. There's no cut.
It is Warner Brothers.
Well, see, the thing about it is I can't imagine a studio would not accept money from another studio to say, can we rent your backlot? Well, 20,000 a day. That's very peanuts. But let's say 20,000 a day just to do this shot. So why not? So you got an instance there where they're talking about kung fu. Now, again, that's a bit loose with the facts.
And stuff, you know.
Because Bruce Lee was in developments with a show called The Warrior, which I think had a very similar background. And there is discussion and debate with if they did steal Bruce's idea or how much of Bruce's influence was in it. It's a bit of a thing I can't go into because I don't know enough about it.
There's a few photos, isn't there, of him trying on different outfits and stuff and different haircuts he's got, like for the show, I think, concept stuff. I think.
Which
one? The one he was going to develop into a TV show that became Kung Fu.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, what photos are you talking about? Because I'm thinking of the one where he's in this traditional Chinese Hong Kong.
Yeah, that's not it then.
No. That was on the set of Way of the Dragon because he got in a bit of dispute with Raymond Chow because Bruce had started his own company where he says, I can do... Look, just because I'm not doing
Concord,
these traditional...
and something like that.
Yeah, Concord was his company. I think he had a discussion with Raymond Chow. Just because I'm not doing those traditional Hong Kong movies doesn't mean I can't. And he even dressed up as Zatoichi, which was a very popular Japanese blind samurai at that stage. So Bruce, there's a great photo of Bruce playing a blind swordsman. Like, it's just a photo, like two photos of him with his eyes rolled in the back of the head. That's pretty good. Like, Bruce was just doing like a photo shoot to show his like versatility.
We get to see Shannon singing in a Mo. Here she is.
There she's singing, Bruce Lee's daughter, Shannon Lee. I'm just thinking now. The older I'm getting, I'll never be invited. I've never been invited anyway. But imagine, like, I'm just trying to think. Imagine if I did get a job on a film set, and they say we're going to a party. By then, I'll be like 50 years old by the time I ever get a job. I'm like thinking, wow, time for my bed. I'm just seeing young people enjoy themselves. Let's just put it that way.
I'm getting pretty tired.
I'm getting old. Where's my pills? I've got to go to bed. Old age, man. The older I'm getting, the more it scares me.
So now they're finding out in 67, I suppose, that the show's been cancelled.
Yeah, I think it only ran for like 13 episodes. Something very little.
I think it made more than that. Didn't they have a bigger slot in America? Had like 23 episodes, something like that. Yeah, it was only one. I know it was only one season. So
Yeah, it didn't. It only lasted, and it didn't make it to syndication because of that.
I think that's how my dad knew about Bruce Lee. It was just through the Green Hornet, because my dad watched the Batman show and thought it was hilarious, and completely understood what it was doing.
Yeah, I didn't get it as a kid, but I'm watching it now. I totally get what they're going for, and it makes perfect sense, and I can see why.
Oh
it's
yeah,
so good.
I love it. Absolutely love the show. But as a kid, I didn't see it as a comedy. I just thought it was kind of a comic book show, and I just loved it for what it was and my own interpretation of it. So yeah, I'll always love it. And here come the Bills.
Green Hornet didn't go for that kind of style, surprisingly. Have you seen Green Hornet?
No, it's a bit different tone, wasn't it?
Much more serious. Yeah. It's a much more. Here's the funny thing, because they did the Green Hornet movie with Seth Rogen. Sorry, got that mixed. Seth Rogen a couple of years back, and the actor playing Bruce Lee in that, playing Kato. Sorry, because he's not playing Bruce Lee, he's playing Kato. Was pretty good in that. Yeah. And that movie was more comical, more leaning towards the Batman 60s type style, where the original Green Hornet was actually quite serious.
Do you think maybe down to sort of because it was Seth Rogen involved, it's going to be a comedy to a certain degree?
Yeah, exactly.
But, maybe it's like a misinterpretation of sort of like people's perception of the show. Like they thought it was like the Adam West show, so we'll just keep.
Yeah,
keep
I guess. Yeah, see, the thing about it is, it happens where people think back of something where it's campy and they don't get the idea. And Simpsons did perfectly with Radioactive Man. Billowing backpacks, Radioactive Man. It's the worst villain of them all. The Scoutmaster.
Use your nails, boys.
Get him, Scouts. Don't be afraid to use your nails, boys. That was Paul Lynde.
Love that.
Which people who don't know, the character of American Dad, the alien Roger, is supposed to be inspired, and Seth MacFarlane, another Seth, is channeling Paul Lynde. So here's a bit of another continuity error, because this is supposed to be 68, and Kung Fu didn't come out in 72.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I just kind of think, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, because that was sort of, well, at that point now, this sort of the popularity of martial arts was kicking in, and they obviously saw the opportunity.
Yep. And the thing about it was, I think Bruce, he probably did get passed on by this stage. He did get passed over by this stage. So I'm just trying to go through the history of it. I think Bruce's father died maybe in 67, and he briefly visited, or it could have been 68, he briefly visited, but he came back to the States, and things weren't going good. And then he finally went back and got like a job offer in like 1969 or 70 when he got to do The Big Boss.
But
he did go back to bury his father at one stage.
65, so this is like
65.
Even the timeline is slightly out, because it's supposed to be 67, 68 maybe.
And at this point, Bruce, after his father died, I think at 68, Bruce's mother and little brother moved to the States as well. So it's a bit interesting what was going on at that point, because Bruce had, I think, two older sisters, an adopted sister, and or maybe it was one sister and an adopted sister, and an older brother and a younger brother. So the sisters and the older brother were married. They were still in Hong Kong, and Bruce's mother was now she was a widow, so she moved with Robert Lee to the States. And I think this was the point where, round about this time, she was living with Bruce. So
this is pretty cool, but the samurai just slides up behind him, so he rises up through the smoke.
This is a similar outfit you saw in obviously it's traditional Hong Kong Chinese funeral garb, but you saw it in Fist of Fury at the beginning.
And he's rocking the flares now.
Yeah, right now it's supposed to be 1970.
Yeah, that's right.
It's supposed to be roughly about late 69, 70, something like that.
69 is when he sort of goes to... Because he goes to Hong Kong, doesn't he? Because he does a demonstration, doesn't he, with his son?
Yep.
And then he gets... And then obviously it was seen by Raymond Chow, who then offers him the sort of job and acting job for Big Boss. Because he says, the Green Hornet wasn't... It was called the Kato Show, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. There's a bit of a backstory to this as well, because Bruce did go to visit his teacher, Yip Man, and they had a falling out, if I'm not mistaken. Bruce also wanted to film him. This might have been at the time that in 65, when his father passed away, Bruce had a 8mm camera, and he wanted to film to show his students. So he wanted to have a photo, and Yip Man got a bit upset with the whole film career and all that sort of stuff. Where he says, I don't know, there was a bit of a falling out, but I heard it did have something to do with Bruce going back and he wanted to like do I don't want to say mini documentary, but film his teacher so he can show it to America, show his students what's going on. And it bothered him.
Was it Ip Man 2 where Bruce is introduced? Doesn't the first one end with him sort of being introduced to Bruce Lee?
Yeah, and they does the nose flick like Lee Hoi Chon. Yeah. No, Lee Hoi Chon is his father.
I've seen number 1. I saw number 4 because Scott Adkins was in it, so I had to see that fight scene, which was bloody amazing.
There's a new one with Yip Man with actual an adult Bruce Lee in the States, and someone did a deep fake where they put Bruce's face on that deep fake, and it's pretty bloody good.
Really, us deep fakes are going to be like, it's great for entertainment, but it's going to be manipulated in scary ways in future.
Well, think about it. If people want to accuse you of a crime, it's going to be hard.
James Cameron said it's no longer going to be a computer AI that takes over everything like Skynet. It's going to be deep fakes. It's gonna.
Well, it's scary because they're doing computers are making art themselves. We're barely going to make it. So
I think the guy who's been cast to play Raymond Chow is really spot on. I like his performance. I mean, he doesn't look. I mean, it's a bit different, but I think he channels him as a real person quite well.
Yeah, and Raymond Chow I thought Raymond Chow was an older person because he was still kicking for a lot of years. I think he only passed away recently.
A couple of years ago. He was like 98 or something stupid. Like, yes.
Yeah, and I thought he was a very old man, but at this stage he was only like 6-7 years older than Bruce Lee. Maybe he was like 41 when Bruce was like 32, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's always in like interview for documentaries and stuff. He was always very level-headed in his later years. He died in 2018 at 91.
Well, looking at this actor here, like if they wanted to do a segment of Enter the Dragon, this guy could have easily played Mr. Han.
Yeah. You have our gratitude.
Take off the glasses. Yeah.
Oh, I think of a Kentucky Fried Movie here, you know.
Exactly. You have our gratitude.
On his answer for machine as well. It's quite funny.
Yeah. Leave your answer after the beep. You have our gratitude. And they do the gong. Or when he just finished having sex with one of the woman that's supposed to be like Anna Capri's character. And he's got the vibrator on his hand. And he says, oh, you have our gratitude. Anyway, I don't want to make fun of it, but yeah. The final day of shooting the big boss, Pak Chong, was it Pak Chong? Yep, I was thinking Pak Chow, I don't know why. Pak Chong in Thailand. I tried to look online if this was actually filmed in the same thing, but this is a pretty good recreation of the actual, what's the name? The Ice Factory from Big Boss.
Yeah, it's good production design here. I think this is quite good. Even the director's quite good as well. I think he's quite
low way. He's trying to be low way.
I don't think Bruce got on with him at all, did he? Because he just.
I think he
tried to take a lot of credit for Bruce's success. I think.
Well, here's the thing. Bruce's martial artist and everything's very good, but once you see Wave the Dragon, you can tell Lo Wei was a veteran director. He knew something. He wasn't fooling himself. He wasn't like, whatever. He didn't. He contributed. Let's put it that way. Because Wave the Dragon's good, but that was Bruce Lee's first outing as director, and you can see a bit of amateur-esque type mistakes here and there. I'm not speaking as a professional. I'm just saying, like, you can see it.
Pulling in the first 5 minutes.
The focus pulling, you can see, some things are just so out of focus. And it's funny because Bruce Lee got like a Japanese cinematographer because Bruce Lee was so into the Japanese films at that stage. Again, mentioning The Blind Swordsman, Zatoichi, they were very good. This is also good. I'm so glad they got like the speed's good, and good. Bruce is just so accurate to what Bruce was wearing in The Big Boss.
Oh yeah,
100%. Like it looks. Yeah, they.
I remember years ago they had a documentary on Bruce Lee on Channel 4 in the maybe early 2000s. I had a clip from Big Boss, and someone had rescored it with this kind of new dramatic music. It sounded amazing. I was like, I
just want to say, if you didn't see it, because I've seen it once, you cannot stop seeing. You can see the wire.
Oh yeah, He does a high kick. Yeah, it's so chunky.
This is a good. This is a good part in the game. That's a great stunt. This is one of my favorite parts in the actual game.
Yeah, isn't it a bonus round? You got to kick the ice.
Yeah. You got to kick the ice, but the thing about it is you start off in the game, because I played the Mega Drive game, you start off on the top level, and then you fall down to the bottom level where it's all ice. And the background's just so beautiful, and you do punch the ice as well. Yeah, I can't imagine punching ice, but...
it's amazing, isn't it? Oh, that sound.
But it's so perfectly well, like a slow motion, just explosion of it.
Probably that's a bit of a. You could maybe somewhat of a John Woo influence there, with a sort of.
There's the wire again. The white really doesn't help with the black wiring.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, that would have killed. See, I'm not listening to this with any sound, but I can remember just the sound of everything like going on.
Oh yeah, you're pretty spot on, Michael. I'm hearing it with sound because I'm sort of showing it via Zoom, so it's a. I'm just.
Oh, so you're hearing this with sound. I'm not. I'm just going off memory. Oh, well, why not? Anyone's looking, you can hire me, people. I do any kind of sound you want.
I'm available for children's parties, by the way.
No.
This is a great. This is where we get. This is where we get to. They sort of use the Enter the Dragon chest stump for real this time. You know, he ain't crushing no candy, crushing ribs. I love that bit where he's just like completely unaware. Oh, that's a good one. Crack.
Just
I love that
facial expression.
He's like in his arms, like he's cracking something out of his neck. It's like
the drill coming out of his mouth. I remember that part.
The music kicks in. I think the theme tune to this film, the theme tune is incredible. Like, to me, I think even other people who love this movie, it should be like the theme should represent Bruce Lee, like now. You know what I mean? Like whenever we refer to Bruce Lie, that Bruce music should be accompanying him. You know, I think it really musically encapsulates who Bruce Lee was and what he represented. Yeah, and it's one of the finest scores.
Have you seen I'll probably share with you Bruce Lee the Legend, that documentary?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
I like the soundtrack in that. There are a few soundtracks, especially one that introduces Game of Death.
Oh, for sure.
And there's one thing here. They've got one of the best versions of Enter the Dragon. I have not found that version of that song anywhere.
Really?
It's so good because it's got a lot of drums. It's just such a good version of Enter the Dragon.
Oh, wow.
And it's from 1984. I can't find a copy of that anywhere.
What the music, or just like a decent copy of the documentary?
No, from that documentary, that music. There was a gentleman a few years back who removed the background sounds, and you can listen to a lot of those themes. But the actual version of Enter the Dragon, for me, I think it's one of the best versions. I've never heard it anywhere else because it's not. I don't want to say it's towards disco, but anyone who's seen that documentary knows what I'm talking about. It's just one of the. You know. It's got a little bit of funk, but a lot of beat to it. A lot of, I don't know, percussion to it, whatever you call it, but I don't know enough about music to say what it's got, but I just know I like it.
I just like it.
Get the Aussie accent. I just like it. I don't care, mate. Bugger that. I like it, and that's the only one that exists. But no, that is such a good score. Anyone who knows anything about it, I'd love to hear about it.
I always watch it quite a lot. I watched the Journey quite a lot, that documentary. I think that came on tape. I think it was. Maybe I think they may have included it with like Enter the Dragon, like special edition, like
probably
might be on there. Or the
Journey, I think it's on there. Yeah, it's on Enter the Dragon. Wouldn't it be cool if that was the same barge from Enter the Dragon?
Man. Yeah.
That would have been, but probably bigger than what would have.
Was it kind of weird, isn't it? Cause like even like Rush Hour, they recreate like the opening to Enter the Dragon.
The opening of it, and they got Lala Schifrin.
Yeah, exactly. That's why maybe they had approached him to do the music for this, but I think without Randy, I mean, that really, he adds such an emotional edge to the music, and it's quite. It made me always kind of tear up a little bit when after the big boss premiere, when he comes out, it's coming up shortly, where the audience sort of pick him up and he's like, you know, on their shoulders, and it's just like, oh, it's amazing, it's so good.
Yeah, it is. They put it. They changed the face. That's the actual poster, by the way. But they changed Bruce Lee's face. Maria Yi, who's playing. Oh, that's the actual Bruce Lee. I always say like they didn't, but they didn't change that.
Okay.
Listen, Chang, give up. Oh, Chang.
That was it. That was I think Linda said, wasn't it, in her book? Was like because the show of respect, they don't react.
Yep. This is actually very accurate from what I've gathered. This was very accurate to what happened because Bruce was scared because no one was clapping. Everyone was dead silent at the end of the film. And Bruce is like, shh, you know, I tried, I failed, let's get out of here. And just before he left, everyone's like, yay, you know, everyone's clapping and everyone's... but this is probably, for me, one of the best scenes out of nostalgic reasons, because probably you can really feel this more than any other scene. This is probably exactly how it happened.
Yeah, I think this is well. I would like to think it's very accurate with.
Yeah, I'd like to think this is a great recreation.
Yeah, and it's got some of the most emotional stuff in it as well. So I think it just shows that everything he's been through, the journey he's been on, it's all come to its kind of highest peak, I suppose, and getting the appreciation he deserves.
I don't want to plug in another YouTuber, but there was a guy that used to talk with Joe Rogan. His name's Joey Diaz, and he talked a lot about when you'd watch The End of the Big Boss or watch Fist of Fury at the cinema, because he was a kid at that stage. You'd walk out, he says, Joe Rogan, after that movie, you just go out and you want to beat the shit out of some motherfucker.
Yeah.
You just wanted to fight. And that's one of the things a lot of people just got so hyped up. And even, again, going back to us growing up as kids, even us as kids watching Bruce Lee, we'd muck around, you'd recreate it. You'd want to I could do that.
Yeah, monkey see, monkey do.
I've got a family photo, I might share it with you one day, where it's got me and my brothers in front of the TV screen, and there's a clip of Fist of Fury in the background. They took a photo, and I've got me trying to do a sidekick, and one of the others standing. I've kept that. I mean, it's a nice little photo I've kept.
I used to recreate a lot of the fight scenes in movies. It's in my head to try and act it out, and then if you get caught, it's super embarrassing. What do you do, Oliver? Nothing.
My back hurts. I'm just scratching.
Yeah.
It's lost in time, thankfully. But there is this old VHS tape of me trying to do the moves when I was 14 in front of the camera.
I used to be super flexible at that when I was younger. Well, even into my 20s, but not anymore. In that shape.
I consider myself still very flexible. I can still do that Bruce Lee bend where he does the bend down where his head goes between his knees. I can still do that. I praise myself on my flexibility because I try to keep stretching as often as I can. I don't want to lose that.
This is the stuff here I love. The music really fucking works here.
And the music's kicking off. The music I can't hear right now.
It's sort of big inspirational kind of music, isn't it, really?
That would be a nice prop to keep as well. You talked about the book. That poster would be nice.
Yeah, man, that's massive, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they're so big, they usually get demolished. They usually get destroyed.
I had those ones at Cinemas Hub. They put them over the railings, I suppose. These massive big banner posters of Superman Returns, like the full set. And I still have it. Must be my parents. I need to sell them. The Superman Returns, I don't think there's many lovers of that movie, so I'm not sure if I get much for it. But the Lee Home, which is apparently, I remember, was it Bay Logan said it was kind of a bad feng shui?
I visited that house. When I went to Hong Kong, I actually stopped to find that house.
Owned by Mafia, wasn't it? Or something like that at the time? Well, in the 90s when they...
It became a brothel at one stage. I don't know if it still is now. But it did become a whorehouse, if I'm not mistaken.
Haunted by Bruce Lee.
And there was it was something to do with it was something to do with Kowloon Tong. They said something like that, the jealous wrath of the neighborhood dragon, something like that. I'm paraphrasing from the documentary Curse of the Dragon. Great documentary, by the way. I love the music in that.
I need to watch that. There's so many documentaries I've watched over the years. I just keep forgetting about them. I think, oh my god, another one I've got to watch again.
A bit of a gripe I have with the casting of Brandon Lee. Brandon had blonde hair when he was a kid. He was much more Caucasian looking than the actual actor they cast for this role. So I don't know if they kind of looked more into the history. Because there was a big joke. I don't want to say big joke, but Bruce made this joke, or maybe a friend of Bruce's made this joke. Say, hey, you're the only Chinese guy who's got a blonde-haired son.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he's got that. He's got blonde, sort of kind of looks a bit like highlights in a way, sort of to his hair.
Which is interesting because I don't know if that happens naturally, but now because Brandon Lee got black hair later on in life.
Yeah, but
he really did start blonde. So maybe that's what the casting director said. Oh, give me a picture of Brandon, and they showed him in his 20s and teens where he had black hair. And missed the point where Brandon was actually blonde.
And this is a real thing, wasn't it? Where Bruce would have those.
Yes, those things he did have. These were very realistic. Now, going back to the Bruce exploitation movies, Bruce Lie. There's one movie in particular. It's supposed to be a documentary. It is so low budget. It's like 2-cent movie, right? But they hit more accurate points than this movie. And not only that, they went to actual locations, got actual actors that were recreating their roles from behind the scenes.
Oh, wow.
Like there's a scene where Bruce they actually go to the same ice factory and they got the same foreman and he's pretending to be himself as an actor. And they got the manager. And the fight that he had on the Big Boss set, like with a Thai boxer, the manager, the same actor runs up and said, Mr. Lee, that man's dangerous. You shouldn't fight with him. And that guy shows him around Thailand kickboxing. And it shows a scene where Bruce says, is that what kickboxing's about? Okay, I'm going to do this style when I fight him. But and they even got Bruce Lee's mates, and they got the very accurate people who look just like Linda Lee and his kids. And there's one scene which I thought had to be bullshit, but was actually real, was that it's those electrode scenes where Bruce is electrocuting himself, where he's attaching himself to the muscle stuff, and he's punching this electricity bar.
Because I remember they'd interviewed, over a number of years, the lady who was with Bruce when he died. That she said he'd used those.
Betty Ting Pei.
He used those things quite a lot, and
no, he did. And it showed one good thing that they also showed in that movie. He was very much into protein shakes, but not the good stuff we got now. Like, he'd put raw beef in there, eggs and eggshells, and mates would come visit. And like one of the actors from Way of the Dragon and Fist of Fury, his mate Unicorn Chan, I think his name was, he recreated the scene as well, where he comes into the house and Bruce is drinking the shake. Said, "You want a protein shake?" And it's like, "Nah, mate." But Bruce at that stage was very, very experimental. He had no fear. He's like, is this the type of vitamins I should be taking? Is this the type of protein shake? I'll drink raw eggs, eggshells, raw beef, and blend it up into a blender and do the electrodes, do the electronic things. Like, you see a lot of those adverts on, but wait, there's more, where they do late night, where you put that 6-pack, it says you put this on your 6-pack. And I remember buying those once, and it was the cheap version where it stimulates your bit of your muscle. But Bruce was using the industrial strength stuff. Where it's like those jokes you see in Married with Children. He says, "I got this World War II air conditioner," and you see it takes up half the room. That's kind of the electricity stuff Bruce Lee had. Like, it took a whole room.
1,000 more volts, Mr. Lee? Yes, please. Just comes out all frizzled. His hair's all like staticky.
Wow. It's not making fun of him. It's just a good little thing
it's
to
crazy.
know. Like, Bruce was so
the
ahead.
amount of stuff he'd go through.
He had no fear to progress his body and progress his art to the best that it can be.
I think like Jason doesn't. When he loses temper, and he smashes that door. It does look pretty real.
See, and you got to admit, he is probably drawing from his own experience growing up as an Asian American in the States. He probably does have a bit of that regress feelings of probably certain instances where he had to deal with that in real life, just like Bruce Lee. And he brings it out here. It's just so good. The performance is so spot on. And it's a shame he didn't do much more. Like, he did Time Cop, the sequel to
he did that.
the Van Damme
He was in
movie.
Mulan, the live action thing. Yeah, that was another big thing for him. He did. Also, he's in Soldier with Kurt Russell.
So I was going to say Soldier with Kurt Russell. That was a pretty good one for me. I like that.
I've always been on the fence with that. I've always been a bit like, it went straight to video because it was a massive bomb in outside the USA. But yeah, Jason was good in that as a sort of, get to see him do some more martial arts again. But so this is the bit here, with the jacket I mentioned about the deleted scene, falling off the bike. He's wearing this jacket.
I was wearing this jacket, okay. Because I don't know about the bike, because I don't think he was riding after he hurt his back. I don't think he was riding a bike after that. But there's his Mercedes. That's actually Bruce Lee. Like, that's exactly the kind of same Mercedes Bruce Lee had. And it made a cameo in Way of the Dragon. And that's actually funny, because the Rolls Royce there, I just noticed that. Before he died, Bruce had ordered a Rolls Royce. He was, because of Enter the Dragon, he was like, I'm going to make it now, and I'm buying a Rolls Royce. And he literally had ordered a Rolls Royce, and it was on its way being delivered to him when he passed away. And here it's got a mention of a headache.
Yeah,
so
it's sort of sowing the seeds. And also earlier on, that shows you the passage of time quickly by showing the Way of the Dragon poster in his office. So I
love that jacket.
Yeah, it's a good jacket, isn't it?
Yeah. Bruce was very stylish too at this stage. I love some of the style that he had. Like, he had some great jackets, some great shirts, and he rocked it. He was just...
But still, it's such a big flavor. It's massive big collar shirts, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, the 70s is coming back. A lot of people are digging into the styles. But you got to have the body for it, so I'm a bit, not exactly as lean as I should be. But so I think I'd look good, but I look like shit. This is a good little segment about Bruce wanting to break back into the States. And even this actor playing Raymond Chow's doing good. Like, I can't think of any bad performances for what they're doing.
No. Everyone's really good in this movie. And this is obviously going to cut to now, like Enter Dragon, with like really bad weather and these.
Yeah, probably this is the one thing they should have put more effort in, because more people are affiliated with Bruce Lee.
The bit in Enter Dragon was, kind of cut short, really. I think there should have been more about it. Maybe they just maybe they had done something and they cut it out, but it seems that, like, maybe they thought, like, does the making of Enter the Dragon actually kind of play into the story of what they're trying to tell? I mean, they only utilize it because it's going to be him encountering the demon. And we get
32nd day.
And we see Rob Cohen get his cameo as a director. Maybe the DP as well gets his cameo. I don't know. You might recognise him, Michael.
No, David. Maybe.
You might see him. You see him a sec. Yeah. Well, actually, no. I think you kind of see it when he comes out of it. I don't know. Comes out of the. Here we go. Look.
No, I don't think that's David Egby doing that. I'm trying to do a bit. I think I recognise someone else in the background, but I just didn't get enough look at it.
It's so different in the movie, isn't it? The mirror stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
Something feels off with Jason's performance here. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like he's doing Bruce Lee. It just feels like it's very early on in the production. It just feels like. But no, actually, this might be early on in production. But the final fight scene was roughly done about the same time when Brandon died.
Well, this is the funny thing because I remember specifically in the audio commentary by Rob Cohen, he said that when they shot that scene where Bruce is trying to protect his son from the demon, is when literally Brandon died. Yeah,
exactly. I heard that. That's why I just recently discovered that
sort
going
of
through
weird, like conspiracy stuff, or just like the weird nature of it all, and how it makes it a little bit more spooky. You know.
I was gonna say it gave more emphasis to the whole demon thing, because even I, as a kid, thought after I heard Brandon died, I said, "Oh shit, there must have been something." I don't want to say there was something to it, but it gave more emphasis than probably the movie was intended.
I did have a little bit there, sorry, with just his arms. It's like he's cleaning some mirrors really quickly. It's too foggy in here, you know.
Yeah.
But this is really creepy, though. I mean, I remember I put something on social media on Twitter about how well it was photographed when you sort of see him surrounded by the demon as it begins to get.
That was good.
And then suddenly, just like smashes through the glass and takes him into that like cemetery. It's a great moment. It's very cinematic, and
I would have liked to have seen in this moment here, because Bruce is doing the exact same thing that he did when he was acting on the set of Enter the Dragon. I would have liked to have seen Bruce with his hands down more, a bit more acceptance, like walking through. It's like, all right, come at me, not like my hands are ready type thing. But again, that's nitpicking. But I like that, just the thing where he just bursts out, boom,
and he
hammers him down.
Shows him his grave.
Just smashing his head. That's the thing about this movie. You forget that there was a demon in the part of the story as well. They throw hints, but...
I suppose, do you think there should have been little more subtle things going on here in the background with the demon?
Yeah, like in a mirror or something. Like it's not obvious to you, but hey, maybe you should look in the movie again. Like, there's probably background scenes.
But then if you're playing
noticing
it too much, it's like it sort of begins to be a bit too fantastical. You know what I mean? Like, people say, well, that's not true, because in reality, most people sort of have come to the conclusion that he'd taken this painkiller that made his brain swell because he was taking cannabis as well and things like that. And well, we've discussed it into the Dragon commentary where he had his sweat glands removed and things like that, and his body just became really hot. I don't know. It's those little things, but I don't. Throwing a demon in is always a bit like.
I don't want to go too much into detail because people might get upset. Recently, Bob Baker's daughter released letters that were from Bruce and Linda addressed to her father, because her father, again, this is they sold for a couple of bit of money. This is speculation. His father was Bruce Lee's dealer at one stage. He was sending a specific substance. I want to say what, because because it could all be bullshit. But anyway, he was delivering a specific substance to Bruce, and the letter say, "Hi, Bob, how are you? Da da da. Could you send me this? Could you send me that? Da 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 da." Now, again, people were saying that kind of might have added to why he was getting so lean towards the end, because he was just taking more than he should have. Again, no disrespect, it might all be bullshit, but that's what's been going around.
Sorry, this bit was all, for me, being a UK viewer, this was all cut, the nunchuck scene as a kid. It's only like you see him kind of using it, but you don't see him like do the spinning it around and grabbing it from the thing. And so I was like, when I saw like the proper, like it was the Laserdisc, I was like, oh my god, the nunchuck stuff, it's amazing.
Yeah, and if you looked closely, one of them was actually a stick. It was a red stick. They weren't even nunchucks. In one scene, you can see it was like it was banging with a stick, so it was a bit odd.
Because it's cut really quickly, wasn't it? It cuts really quickly, so it looks like a stick. I think it's a motion blur.
This is one of the best parts in the video game because it took me a while to figure out you had to do
Yeah,
that
to
move.
kill him, yeah.
Because I got him to 0.
What are you doing? It's like-
And then you had to have the if you didn't have the nunchucks, you couldn't do it.
yeah. You have to have your chi full blast.
Yeah, exactly. You had to have the chi full. Hey, Bruce, we kind of lost you there. Yeah, going back to Rob Cohen cameoing as the director. So he's playing Robert Klaus. Back to the house. Doesn't look like the same house we saw earlier. Probably from a different angle.
Yeah. What are you doing here? I live here. It's like-
I live here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it's fun to watch every now and then because I haven't seen it in a while.
They should have had like a phone call from like what's his George Lazenby or something like that, saying, "Oh, you want to meet up for dinner?" You know what I mean? Because he was supposed to be meeting him, wasn't he?
He was supposed to be meeting him that night. Yeah. I mentioned this story. I don't something that happened recently. I was talking to my mum because we were talking about these hot weathers and people talking about climate change or whatever, and she's saying the hottest day I ever lived. I remember the hottest day I ever lived. This is random. This is a random conversation. The hottest day I ever lived was the day I bought the plane ticket to go, or the day I was going to go the plane ticket to Australia. And she said, I remember that was the hottest day in my life. I can't believe it was so hot. Just at the airport. I said, oh yeah, what day was this? Oh, it was July 20th, 1973. And it spun me out. It was just, wait a second, you're talking about how hot it was. And everyone talked about Bruce Lee dying on that day as well. About the heat. How much, and people talking about that specific time period, how bad the heat was. And in recent discussions, they were talking about, what's the name? The sweat glands. Bruce Lee removed the sweat glands.
Boiling hot.
And it was. They said that does contribute a lot to the point where once you remove sweat glands, your body can't
regulate its heat properly, you know.
Yeah, something like that. So,
but it's also again with we mentioned very early on about the chemistry between Jason and Lauren. That little moment there where he says how much he loves her, I thought that's a brilliant moment. Yeah. I love it. Absolutely love it. The romance works down to perfectly. And it's about which that's a little voiceover bit, and it's like, and it's the him posing behind this ginormous sun. It's like it's got so close to him, it's like it's boiling hot. But it's the poster design, isn't it? Where he does the flying kick and.
It's all in there. I was just noticing as well the flags they got look nothing like the ones from Enter the Dragon.
Aren't they, in the film on the yellow flags.
And I'm just trying. No, they are yellow, but they had a different black symbol. This one had this weird wave symbol, and I'm just trying to think now. Did Warner Brothers restrict this movie from a lot of things? Say, well, you can't use this, you can't use that, which might have added to why they didn't have so much emphasis on the movie set.
Yeah. Because there's certain things. Because if you look at things like Hollywoodland, about George Reeves, like Warner Brothers wouldn't allow any Superman symbol stuff to be used in the advertising and trailers. It's in the film. You see, like, you know, Ben Affleck in the sort of black and white kind of Superman outfit, and then later on in colour.
Dedicated to Brandon.
Yeah. That's
Key to immortality's first living life. Yeah, it's Bruce Lee's quote.
Yeah.
Or is it? Did Brandon? No, either way, it's sad.
But yeah, you may be right, Michael, about certain assets they couldn't use for the Enter the Dragon
Well, the
section.
thing, you saw clips from Big Boss.
Yeah. So, but that's not.
But again, they didn't use the name Raymond Chow, so I don't know.
Oh, was it Eddie Chen or something like that?
Philip Tan, I think,
Philip
Tan or something like that. He was playing one of the. I don't know. Like, I try not to give too much accuracy, like to say, this is exactly because I don't want to disrespect if I get the name wrong.
Well, obviously they've changed things around due to legalities of things. The music here, so good. The music. Sorry, I'm talking about the music, but you can't hear it.
I can't hear it. See, we're watching this video. I say video. We're watching this on together.
I'm streaming it anyway to Michael, so but he doesn't stream the audio, unfortunately. But Michael knows what the movie is. He knows, he's heard.
I know what the movie is. I got the.
But I think this film still stands up really well in terms of entertainment value. Obviously, it plays it fast and loose with information about Bruce and his bio.
Obviously, but even now watching, I was just so into it. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I mean that's the same. Even like the recent, I mentioned Elvis. You know, people say, "Oh, this is not true. This is like how the situation occurs in a different location or how it transpires." But that's what filmmaking does. They adapt and change it to be more entertaining, because often deals and discussions people had or how things took place was often quite mundane and not particularly amazing to see on a big screen. So you have to change things slightly around. But there has been more Bruce Lee kind of things, hasn't there? Like there wasn't a TV show they did.
The Warrior as well, I think they did that. Oh, no, and in Hong Kong they did a TV show of Bruce Lee. I heard that was pretty good. And the thing here is this movie literally borders on... It could have gone either way. I think it's perfectly balanced, because if it gone a little bit too further, it would have been one of those ridiculous, oh, here we go, like just some bullshit type thing. But as it stands, for the budget it's got, for the way they've directed it, I'm very impressed. Like, just the more I read into it, the more impressed I was with the whole thing, knowing the limitation of the budget. And this did a killing in the box office, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah, it made like 63 million, like on a tiny
Yeah,
budget.
well, it was like a 14 million for budget, and it made 63 million worldwide. Yeah,
very impressive. And obviously made a killing on video as well. So, because us lads picking it up, oh my god, it's Bruce Lee in the same day, and lapping it up, and obviously buying the video games and stuff like that. So,
the video game had a lot of good things going on with that one.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of people don't particularly like it, but I've always had fun with it. The three player mode. You could be 3 Bruce Lees for some reason.
Oh yeah, that's right. That had you could have 3 Bruce Lee modes. I forgot about that, because I picked a copy of Mega Drive on that just recently, last year.
Well, everyone, that is the end of the commentary. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, maybe a month or so, me and Michael will be back with another commentary. Don't know yet which film it will be, but I'm sure it'll be in a similar vein. Well, everyone, take care of yourselves, and goodbye.
See you guys.